the agenda in here somewhere.
We have minutes that everybody received
Long time
a
ago.
long time ago.
Yeah.
Are there any additions or corrections to be made to the minutes? If not, a motion to adopt the minutes will be
So moved.
Second.
moved and seconded to adopt the minutes as presented. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it. Okay, correspondence. We thought about sending thank you letters to a few folks here, Jeff Williams being one, who came and
Yes.
gave us a presentation. Your Eco Toilet summer intern
Yes.
and
Jesse Bean
and the agency, the entity that paid him.
and the Cape Cod Commission.
Was it them?
Yeah, basically, I always went to the Cape Cod
Okay,
Commission
fine.
to talk with the people,
Okay.
Tabitha. And
Yes.
Okay, and the shellfish volunteers, the people who actually provided us with the shellfish that went into the pond for testing, and the ones who've been kind of bird dogging this.
I realized I wasn't at that meeting, so I should abstain from voting for the minutes.
All right. The minutes will reflect that he's abstaining from voting on those minutes.
Um,
All right. So anybody else we should be thanking? This is the list I had.
I don't know whether it makes any difference. Jesse Bean will be continuing on a part-time basis, 1 day a week, 4 hours.
Well, what's your preference? Should we send him something?
I think we
Okay.
should send him now.
Okay.
But,
Throughout the winter?
I don't know how long.
Yeah, I thought he was going back to school.
He is going back to school.
Yeah.
He's arranged with 3 Cs. He's arranged with the
Cape
Cape
Cod
Cod Commission to be here in the mornings on Tuesdays and Thursdays.
Oh, no kidding.
And I discussed this with him and with Tabitha, and I also discussed with Sia briefly. I think probably it would be good if Sia would manage him. It would be better. That would be the best way to do it. 1 day a week, and we can decide how that works. But this is his last day.
Okay. Well, the issue before us is a thank you letter, and the answer
That's right.
is yes.
Yes.
Okay. Motion.
Motion to send thank you letters to the it's two, right? Selfish volunteers that provided the
Yeah,
seed.
Who were the two that did that?
It was in,
Matt Weeks?
yes, it was in the newspaper. Here we go. Matt Weeks and Dan Fougere.
Okay.
We'll have to,
Okay, if Steve knows anybody else, we'll add them, but those
yes,
two.
those are the two.
And
Okay.
Jesse Bean.
Jesse Bean.
Jesse
B-E-A-N.
And the Cape Cod Commissioner, Jeff Williams. Okay.
Do you want me to write this? Well, you gotta
No, we'll
get to that.
we'll get to that. We're having a vote now.
Okay, so I so move.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? We got it. Okay, how about the draft water bill inserts? About the eco toilets and the fertilizer. There are copies of both
Yep.
proposed on the very end of your pile here, item 11.
I would like to make a quick comment about about both of them, actually. I would like to say that yours is very, very catchy. It's nice.
Well, that's my theory about almost everything. You got to make it catchy or it goes
That's
in the
right.
trash.
Well, Virginia reminded me that we were going to be discussing this evening, and I just quickly wrote up something and sent it out. It is not particularly catchy. I would like someone to sit down and figure out a way to make it catchier.
Okay.
Sia's good at that.
I'll be
Okay.
catchy, yes.
Yeah, okay. With the same kind of information, but catchy.
Yeah, we don't have to adopt these tonight, but the idea is to get some direction going.
Clip art like with toilets or something like that.
Yes, you could do that.
Right.
On a lawn.
Wait, we need
Well, like that
to-
newspaper guy who was talking piled toilets on the.
it clearly looks as if the flyer is doable financially. It's only going to be about $1,200. That it's printed by the same company that does the water bills, so they're all set to insert them.
Right.
We just have to provide the text, and so there has to be some agreement on that. And it seemed to me that the other key piece was, well, two key pieces, was the telephone, that their water department requirement that there be somewhere else if someone feels they have to make a call. And so that has now been set up with an answering machine. It's ready to go. And then the second piece is the website. And so, Sia, we need to sort of talk to you, at least we need to have this discussion, that once those flyers get mailed, whatever the website address is, that it has posted on it the contract and all of the information that we want for the eco-toilets. And the same thing, we need to make a decision, and this would have to be by mid-October, so we have a little time, as to what kind of information we want on the fertilizers, so that the flyer refers people to actual sources of information.
We have to have it in by the middle of October?
We have to have the text to the water department actually in the middle, by the end of September. And Town Manager Suso has also expressed an interest in seeing it. So I would think the steps are seeing the text. So I think the steps are that the committee agrees on what the text is going to say on both sides of the flyer. We then, and hopefully, if we don't decide that tonight, maybe we don't, we decide it by next week. And then it could go to the town manager so that he looks at it. Ray Jack also wants to see it, so that could be tracking at the same time.
I'd like to ask a question. I had a reason to look at my water bills for the last year because of the project we're doing. I discovered that they were red on my water bills anyway, are red on July 1st and January 1st, or thereabouts, not
Right.
quite in those days necessarily. And that they go out sometime in November, I guess it is, or something like that.
Several months later.
Do all of them go out at
Yep.
the same time?
Well,
Everybody?
they have a period of reading for a bill that is coming due in the fall, and then another period of reading.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah,
The bills go out at the same time, the readings may be different.
Different.
Depending what book you in.
right.
Because the readers have to get out
Yeah.
there. So it's not always, everybody doesn't get the same 6-month period.
Right.
No, I got 353 days for the year. Yeah, that was my days.
You got off easy.
Well, the next year I'll just have to pay the extra money. Yeah.
Yeah. Right. Well, it seemed a wonderful way to reach 21,000 households.
Yeah.
Well, I think we've agreed to do it. We've got the time frame now.
Yeah.
Do you want to play with the texts here? Maybe not to finalize, but at least to comment on the texts so that.
Why don't you take
the
them
next-
one by one?
Yes.
and
Let's,
then-
how about the
Okay.
Yes, you had some comments on my text that you might want to go through.
Yeah, I can't remember them, but
I can remember.
Can I just make an overall comment?
sure.
Since the fertilizer one and the eco-toilet one are the only ones that people have sent in so far, I don't hear anyone loudly proposing anything else.
No.
I can't think of anything else. And since the eco-toilet one is really repeated 3 times.
Oh.
No, that's just.
That's a formatting issue.
Right, but what I'm saying, and since we're allowed 2-sided printing on one 8.5 by 11 page,
No.
this is just a suggestion.
Okay.
Correct. There may be we're only allowed 1-sided printing. It's a little more.
Apparently, the
It's only gonna
optimum
be this
format
big.
is 2 sides, but only 1/3 of a page.
We're going to print 2 sides, and then they're going to cut it into what they call buck strips. So each sheet will be cut into 3 pieces.
so
And
many.
that's, as when I got the numbers last spring or winter, you save a little bit of money that way.
Well, if you do a whole sheet, I got additional information beyond what you got, because they only quoted you printing 1 side if you did a whole sheet.
Well, okay.
We won't argue about that. But the point is, if you do a whole sheet, then you also have to pay for folding.
Oh, okay.
Okay? So it was more economical to have it printed on 2 sides, so we could have 2 topics, and then cut it into thirds. So you would only be using
Okay, well,
1/3.
let me just tell you the idea anyway.
Okay.
Was going to be have 1/3 for the eco-toilet, 1/3 for the fertilizer, and 1/3 saying, and there's much more information available on our website. And then print that same thing on as many sides as you're allowed to. In other words, if it's the marginal cost to print on 2 sides, print the same thing on both sides, so
Whichever side they look at, they
whichever
see.
side they look at, they see it.
They have the same message.
But if you're doing just 1/3 and you're printing different things on the two different sides, some people are going to read only one of them, maybe. I'm just throwing that out for
A
discussion.
lot of people aren't gonna read them at all.
That's true.
That's true.
Yeah, I mean, think
They're
about
gonna
when
be
you
bright
get your.
yellow.
Yes, but think about when you get your phone bill or anything, and they have those stupid little inserts in there.
Right.
And they have all kinds of highly paid marketing people designing them. And what do most of us do with them? Throw them out.
we toss
So that's what you're up against.
My rebuttal to that is the reason we have simple messages is that people are likely to read it. When they take something out of their telephone bill, it's a lot of print. It's fairly small.
That's true.
It's dense. And so this is going to be bright yellow. It's going to have two messages that are going to have some good, I think people will see it.
If
I think the other thing we want is a
excuse me,
graphic.
Graphic.
if Verizon knew what it was doing, they wouldn't send you square envelopes that you have to turn upside down to open. Okay? I mean, think about that.
True. So you're saying maybe their marketing people aren't so highly paid.
Or if they are, they're paid too much.
Okay, and your suggestion is a graphic.
But I think a graphic with some catchy, just
Yeah.
almost a cartoon that will draw people. And then I was thinking, I hadn't put time into this yet because of the September deadline, and I was focusing on other things. But I will have before the next meeting, I think it's next week,
Right.
a mock-up that has graphics, and the font should be different on each side, so people understand that it's a different message. So we're gonna change the font on each side, we're gonna have a graphic that's kind of cartoony and maybe has some funny quip, if I can find one, which I think I can, for fertilizer and eco toilets is gonna be easy. But for fertilizer, and then I really like your idea to say there's much more information on the website, and I think we should repeat that sort of a line
Yeah.
on each side, so that if you read one, you'll say there's much more information on the website. And I could give a quick on the website right now if you want.
Well,
And maybe
let's
have
finish this
something on
topic.
each side that says also see the other side.
Please turn over.
Yeah.
Just write, please turn over on each.
Well, presumably both sides will have a reference to the website and the phone
Yes,
number
yes.
at the bottom.
Each one is sort of, in a sense, standalone, so if they
Right.
only see one side or the other, they've got all the information. Okay?
Okay, are we generally agreed on the
Yes.
premise that the 1/3 of a sheet is the way to go with a sound message in the front and the back? Okay, good. We need some, you want some sort of simplifying for the eco toilet piece.
I do, but I think we could let Sia work
We
on
have
that.
time. What we're doing
Yeah.
now is just getting input so we know what to come back
Yeah.
with next week. Anything else we should be thinking about?
No, I think that's direction to see, and so we'll look at the next iteration at the next meeting, next
Okay.
week.
Okay, any
I'll have
further,
it up on Monday.
any further
Okay.
input?
I'm trying to make this fast for Matt.
I like the starting at 7 o'clock because I came in 15 minutes late. We're on item 11.
Yeah, right.
Backwards.
We were going to start with the adjournment, but we thought that would be really too.
Then you walk into
A
an
little too aggressive.
Right, but we did put away 13, 12, 11, and now 10. All right.
Okay, great.
Okay, well, now, I think, to be fair, we are now in quorum mode as far, I mean, we had a quorum, but now we have the super quorum, as it were, and Ron is on his way, which will make everybody here.
Mr. Chairman, could I make a suggestion? I think that the first item on the agenda is very important, and so I really would like to wait for Ron.
Okay?
I could give a report on item 4, which is the inlet widening with the Conservation Commission, because everybody was at that meeting, with the exception of 2 people, Matt and Steve Rafferty.
Any objection to taking item 4 out of turn? Hearing none, item 4 is on the table.
Okay,
Sorry.
all right.
Ron.
We had arranged this, as the committee remembers, we had asked the Conservation Commission if they would set aside some time to just talk about inlet widening. We were interested as a committee in their thoughts and reaction, and we hired John Ramsey, who has done all of the modeling for the inlet widening, to make a formal presentation to the committee, which he did, and it was a very smooth presentation. He talked about inland widening first as a concept, and then he talked particularly about Little Pond and Bourne's Pond. He made a number of specific statements or assertions, and I wrote them down so that you would hear what the Conservation Commission heard. The first thing he said is that if there is inlet widening to Little Pond, Bourne's Pond, that there will be an immediate improvement to the water quality. This will help these ponds. He said you want to have a strong current that will carry the stand in and out of the inlet. He's aiming for 3 feet per second at high tide, so he has a metric that he's looking for. He said one of the questions is, well, you know, if you open up the inlets more, will that change the salinity of the ponds, and will that affect the habitat or whatever particular fish or spawning? And he said no, that there's very little change in the salinity. It's already pretty salty, and so it's just a matter of a few milligrams per liter. Will not affect the habitats. He made a point about flooding, because that's the next thing that people think about. If you open up the inlets, you know, I'm going to get flooded. He said you have to think about what the flooding is. The limiting factor is the height of the road. That if you have a major storm, hurricane, it's the water that comes over the road that causes the flooding, not so much that the inlet is 20 feet instead of 10 feet or 50 feet wider. So he does not believe that widening an inlet will cause flooding problems. He did say that there will be a somewhat lower low tide and a somewhat higher high tide if you have a wider inlet, and that's because what he called the prism, the water prism. There is somewhat more water that is exchanged, and that's why you're getting the better water quality with the wider inlet. And that what you will see as a response is more fringe salt marsh. So it actually will generate wetland responses, which many people would think was good. He said the same point that Jeff Williams made. You've got to have maintenance. He said, whatever the size of your inlet is, if you don't maintain it, you're not going to get the benefit of what you've done. And he specifically pointed to Little Pond and the shoal, that there's a large shoal on the inside of inlet of Little Pond. And I actually think we ought to have it as an agenda item and perhaps talk to the appropriate, invite some of the town staff to discuss that, because I think it needs to be focused on. I think it would help the aquaculture.
The same thing happened in Bourne's Pond too.
Okay,
Right.
yep.
Big sandbar.
Right.
So maintenance is a key piece.
When you say maintenance, you're talking about dredging.
Dredging,
Yeah, maintenance,
yes, right, and the ease or difficulty of doing that. And he specifically mentioned the big shoal on the inside of Little Pond. He spoke about sea level rise. This is his information. He said 8 inches by 2050. Some people have thought
2050 or 15?
50.
50.
50. He expected 8 inches. And so that obviously will affect, you will need to look at properties that are low-lying with that in mind. There have been other estimates that say a foot or more, but anyway, that's the number, that's the metric that he put out. And then he gave some dollar
Can I
amounts.
just make a point
Yeah.
about that?
Sure.
Even 8 inches is going to be significant when you get a high tide with a storm.
Yeah.
So it's,
Right.
But that's independent of inlet widening.
Well, yes,
Well,
right, but what he was going through was sort of a checklist of comments that come up when you say inlet widening. These are the things that people think of or ask about. So
But it's not it doesn't make inlet widening any more dangerous.
I completely agree. Yes, that's
That
correct.
was his point.
That was it. Yes, that's right. This is what you think will happen.
I'd like to ask another
yeah.
question about that.
Sure.
We've had, just in the last 3 or 4 days, we've had a couple of weeks, after he gave his speech, there was reports on the inlet, on the rise on the East Coast is expected to be more rapid. Was he, did he have that in mind when he was?
No, he didn't. And you know, so here's a case where the experts don't necessarily agree. He said that it was not going to be as high as had originally been estimated. That's what he said. I have heard others that are more closer to a foot than 8 inches.
Well, the newer stuff says that the east coast is rising, the tide is rising more than, not the tide, but the level is rising more than anywhere else in the world, they say.
But again, it's
Yes.
independent of inlet water.
That's
Yeah.
right.
Yeah.
It shouldn't be an argument against.
Unless it's 10 feet, in which case you don't have to do the inlet.
Right.
I-
No problem. Yeah.
Yeah.
Be careful on the sea level rise. I've been to 2 or 3 seminars, and something's happening, and no one can actually predict where. We have not done
Wow.
the studies, even in Massachusetts. You know, it's the East Coast.
Coast.
We don't know about Massachusetts, and we don't know about the Cape. All the numbers are right, but they all have a degree of uncertainty, so, you know, it's probably not worth our time to try to say, is it an inch or 12 inches
Right.
or 13 inches?
Right. But you were just going through his report.
Yeah, I'm just itemizing
If I
his
could
comments.
just comment on this whole thing. Back to the concept of inlet widening and where we go with looking at inlet widening. When we get into what I would call the modeling of what an inlet widening looks like and what happens under it, I would suggest that perhaps we'd ask whoever does that work to look at what happens if the sea level rise was 6 inches, 12 inches, or 18 inches,
Okay.
to determine if there was
Yeah.
a substantive difference in sea level rise effect to inlet widening, that which might help to drive how we decide to widen the inlet. Okay?
Right, that's
It is
good.
rising, we don't know how much, but perhaps
Right.
incorporate 3 different ways of looking at it and make a decision from there.
That's right.
Sensitivity analysis.
That's-
Yeah.
That's very,
Great.
I didn't want to use that word because it had too many letters in
right.
it.
Make sure that's in the minutes.
What was the phrase?
He was saying sensitivity analysis.
Sensitivity analysis. So 6 inches.
Sounds
12 inches.
scientific, don't start it on me.
John then gave information. Ron, summarizing the meeting you were at the Conservation Commission
Right, okay.
with John Ramsey.
Right.
He then gave some numbers that he had obtained from GHD. And for Bourne's Pond, with the inlet widening going from 50 feet to 100, there would be $14 million to $16 million saved if those peninsulas were sewered. And it would cost somewhere between 8 and 12 million to do the widening. These are just estimates, but they're the first time I've had any kind of dollar amounts I've ever heard any.
And how much would it save? I'm sorry, I missed the
Okay,
first.
so you'd save 14 to 16 million on the amount of area that you had to sewer, but you would be spending 8 to 12 million to do the widening. So the savings there, you can do the math.
Sia did a little bit of analysis on this, which
Okay.
came up with 515 households that presumably would not have to be sewered if the opening were carried out. And the kind of opening we're now talking about is not a channel that's wider and a bridge, a new bridge. We're talking about a couple of
Box culverts.
box culverts on either side of the existing channel.
This is Bourne's Pond.
This is right, as a
Morris
result
Palmer
of conversations with the Concom and the Cape Cod Commission and everybody. I think that's more the direction we'd be going. So it
Okay.
wouldn't be $12 million, and the savings would be considerable.
Yeah,
Yeah, for Bourne's Pond.
For Bourne's Pond.
There were 3 tech memos that I've reviewed that came out.
okay.
And in those memos, the cost for the inlet widening at Bourne's Pond, I think they were Little Pond because I think that's what the tech memorandums were in the $1 million range.
Yeah.
Well, I haven't gotten to Little Pond.
Yeah, Little Pond is
I'm reporting on what he said, okay? So I've reported on what he said for Bourne's Pond.
And
What he said,
Virginia, if I can, these are just purely the capital cost, not the operational cost.
that's correct.
So you'd have to
That's
balance
right.
the cost for running the sewer system against the cost for periodic cleaning.
That's right. These are
Yep.
just comparisons of
Okay.
capital costs. For Little Pond, the numbers that he put out were that you would save $7 million, and it would cost about $1 million to go from 10 feet wide to 20 feet wide. So obviously, it's a much smaller job to widen Little Pond. And so, well, anyway. All I'm saying is those are the numbers that he presented and informed the Conservation Commission. Anyway, and that it would take about 3 years to do the permitting. That's just to give you a sense of time. That was the end of his presentation. The Conservation Commission didn't ask a lot of questions about inlet widening. They were very interested in stormwater control. They asked us about Little Pond and what we were doing with stormwater control. They told us that the town is in the process of doing, it's called MPDES, National Pollution.
Discharge elimination system.
Thank you. So that's a permitting process that the town is currently in and that is required to meet higher standards. And in a subsequent email, they thought that our committee should be looking at stormwater for the whole town. So I just in terms of the flavor of the committee, of the meeting, I thought it was interesting that they were very interested in stormwater, less so in inlet widening. And then my last comment having to do with inlet widening is that I understand that the regulatory agencies are looking at this long permitting issue, and that they will be having a meeting sometime in September in Boston to just, sort of staff to staff, talk about how they either get it organized or run in parallel tracks, so that perhaps it doesn't take 3 years.
Jerry?
Not one to miss a debate, but considering that in less than 3 months, we'll have answers, preliminary answers on costs and things like that, maybe we could just hold back, is it 12 million or 3 million?
Yes.
And, the full regulatory review, or possibly if we even put a little extra money into getting a preliminary design for Little Pond and then making a decision, which one should go first. I mean, it's gonna be in front of us within a matter of 8 weeks, I would think, something.
But I think the point of the exercise was to get the Concom a little bit up to speed on where we were going with these things, because they clearly weren't, and I think they are more so now.
Is it open for comments?
Absolutely.
I think that all these permitting things and that meeting with Concom and so on are very valuable. But once you start spending real money, in other words, several millions of dollars, I see a difference between inlet widening and the other demonstration projects in that from what I learned from asking the engineer, what's his name again?
Nate Wicks?
No,
Ramsey.
Ramsey. John Ramsey.
this isn't a demonstration project.
No,
It's the real thing.
this is the real thing,
Right.
absolutely.
It's perfectly engineered. They know exactly what it will do, to the same degree that you could have this building design. So it doesn't make sense to do it until you're sure that it's cost effective compared to all the other alternatives. When you're comparing it to sewers, that's just comparing it to the worst case. As you know, I'm not a wild fan of eco toilets, but they're cheaper than this is per household handled. And I don't know about permeable reactive barriers and oysters. Oysters surely are, because supposedly they're going to return money. They have a negative cost. So I think at some point we should have a wide-ranging discussion of what our philosophy is on that. How are we going to make those decisions, and what are they? Because otherwise you're going ahead with one particular approach without really comparing it to all the other possible ways of doing it.
Well, so far, we're only going ahead to the point of determining the cost effectiveness of that approach, as we are with all the others. I mean,
Right. But the numbers that Virginia just gave are pretty close. I mean, they're probably within 20%. They're not off by a factor of 2, right? They might be?
Once upon, but I don't know if that's what he said. He's a bright person.
No, you're making a valid point.
Yep.
You're making a valid point, which is the inlet widening has more substance in terms of a number and a defined effect, but it's not been compared against alternatives.
Yeah. And I'm not saying we have to have this
No,
discussion
no,
now.
and we
just
owe
that
that.
we have to have it before we
no,
start
no.
spending millions of
No,
dollars.
no, before we commit beyond a certain point, but in the permitting process, justify spending some money going forward. But we have to look the citizens of this town in the face and say, whatever the number is for Bourne Pond, it's the best expenditure at that point. You know, whatever the number is, you got 500 something homes. That this brings back health to the estuary for a certain area. It's a valid investment, and we've done the due diligence against all the other choices. I agree, but on the face of it, it seems like it's got more legs than some other options, Steve. I mean, we don't know what an eco toilet and what you do or don't get from it. Put a number on it, and it starts to get close to the cost of doing the work. Okay,
I agree.
500 homes times whatever.
I just wanted to make
it's close.
sure that everybody realized it's not a garden variety demonstration project.
It's not. No, this is much more solid.
Right, Ron.
Yeah.
Ron.
Oh, right. Oh, okay. No, I was just, okay, thank you. In looking at this, I just am wondering though, and this is part of the note that I sent around a couple weeks ago, is if we look at what we're doing, let's say inlet widening, let's say oysters, let's say PRBs, these things are even fertilizer controls. These are nitrogen attenuating measures, clearly. But there's only two technologies that I'm aware of, or maybe Jerry can help with this, is that in order to reach the TMDL, let's say for Little Pond, right now the nitrogen load from the watershed is about 20 kilograms a day from the MEP reports. The target is 5 kilograms per day to reach the TMDL, roughly, okay, more or less. So but there are only two technologies that I think that have nitrogen reduction credit that can be applied to the TMDLs. And that is sewers and denitrifying systems. The others don't contribute. We don't have nitrogen reduction credit for inlet widening. We do?
I think we do.
Change the TMDL.
Yeah, I'm frowning because I don't agree with your statement.
But-
You get a lot, I mean, credit might not be the right word, we run the models, and I hate to use the word, we get dilution benefits, which is not treating. But on the nitrogen credits for INA, it's not as low as we'd like. Right now, the
Okay.
state gives us 19, we'd
Right.
like at least 5.
Yeah, change
Right.
the TMDL.
But for oysters or shellfish, how are we going to deal with the TMDL for that, or PRBs, or fertilizer control? How do we deal with knocking down the nitrogen, getting credit so that we're showing that we are reaching 5 or whatever it might be, equivalent of 5? Yeah.
That's the question that we're dealing with eco toilets. So that's why we're doing the demonstration project.
Right.
And DEP is very interested in that because they will use it to set the
Yeah,
benchmark
that's the
for
ultimate point of a lot of the
TMDLs.
demonstrations. Try to put some quantifications to
Yeah.
these things.
Right.
Try to figure out what's ins or outs and pluses or minuses.
Right.
Right.
So I don't know.
We had an early meeting today with the
Cape Cod
DEP
Commission.
and Cape Cod Commission, and basically, the state has bought into the premise that what we are doing gets you to where you want to go here in terms of having,
May get it if the projects
if they
work.
succeed.
they work,
and
yeah.
how well they succeed, but this is where the rubber's meeting the road, because
Right.
we're actually doing it, as opposed to other places that are thinking about it.
I mean, if that is something that I don't know, from the, we've got a couple of experienced legislature people here.
Don't hold it against
Jerry,
me.
not holding it against you, I'm saying, no,
We know
it's a good thing. But if we were to show that these types of interventions worked,
Yeah.
then what kind of time frame before we would start to say, well, we can, that it would be enacted as a law or incorporated in that would be allowable?
It doesn't have to be enacted into law. It could be, DEP would just make that.
Oh,
We need 3 to 4
Regulation.
years
Yeah,
of data, or data that they would accept, and right now, 3 years. After 3 years, we negotiate with the type of credit and how much they're gonna give us. So we should know in, say, 4 years, what nitrogen credit we
Okay.
can get.
For
Either
everything.
we can measure it well, for whatever demonstration projects are ready.
Okay.
So, okay,
So,
if I
go
just,
ahead. Yeah.
just one more follow-on point then. So what I think then is that if we look forward and we say that right now we're beginning the inlet widening permitting process. We've already did one round that kind of went back a little, but now we're moving forward toward getting that permit for that technology, for doing that. So in that light, I think the other technology that we're looking at, which are the permeable reactive barriers, it may be time now also to start the process of looking at what's needed. I've talked to Jennifer McKay about this, even though it's not proven yet, but in 4 years, if it is proven, and then we start the permitting process, then we're pushed further out. So I'm just saying at this point to start exploring, talking to Jennifer, finding out what MEPA is going to require, what the Concom would require, and there are certain things about acreage that you could, like I don't know, whatever it is, there's a certain kind of impact that you have that steps, that puts it into other agencies in the state for approval. And so it's just getting that going, getting a sense. It's not saying, and it's actually in the terms of reference of the engineer to do these kinds of things that would be there.
That's
So,
what's happening.
That's
Yeah.
the purpose.
That's what we're here for.
okay,
RFP.
yeah.
That's why we should start hopefully in a month.
All right,
Okay.
we've all been away for
Yeah.
a month and we've kind of lost our formality a little bit. So let's gin it up. Okay.
I just want to reiterate again what I think Steve was saying, and to point out that we do have a window, you say 3 or 4 years, before we are going to do any construction on most of these projects.
No, for some of them,
For some of-
we have
yeah.
effective data.
Yeah.
Sewers may already start to be putting in, maybe not, maybe yes.
Well, in any case, it's going to take a while to get the money. It's going to take a while to get it started. In the meantime, we can start putting together the information which will make it possible for us to do the kind of thing that Steve wants to do. We need to do that. I think you're absolutely right. We need to compare everything. But we have at least 2 or 3 years to develop preliminary data on which we can make those comparisons. And I think that's what we should look at it that way. We don't make any final decisions on what we're going to do until we have those comparisons, it seems to me. But we do need to get the permits, don't we?
Well, permits, I'm sorry, Mr. Chairman.
Yeah, Virginia.
How does that work?
The permits have to be with a specific project. It's not a general, okay, you can widen an inlet. So the permits are definitely related to a specific designed project. We need more preliminary information than those 2 sentences that I read to you that was estimates that John Ramsey had gotten from GHD. And so the engineering RFP that's out now, and the proposals are due next Wednesday, that's one of their specific tasks, to develop a real design with real costing numbers for Bourne's Pond, and the report's supposed to be due by the end of December. There has to be a decision made at this level, at the selectmen's level, before we actually go into serious design. And then as you do that, then you're going through the permitting process.
Okay.
And that permitting process it starts with what's called an environmental notification form, which is filed with the Massachusetts EPA. It gets a parallel copy to the Cape Cod Commission, and so there's a review that's done in parallel. So that's the very first hurdle. There's also coastal zone management is involved, the Corps of Engineers will be involved, and ultimately you end up at the local Conservation Commission, and their permit has what's called an order of conditions, which has all of the specific requirements, and then you're able to start to build.
Let me ask you, now
Okay, well,
that that's
yeah,
in place, let me
okay.
ask the question. Suppose you go through that entire process for something because you need to have it available, permitted, if you're going to do it within a certain time. Suppose in the meantime, while that process is going on, let's say it takes 3 years, you've done your analysis and you decide that's not what we want to do at the last analysis. Is there any reason why we can't just say, well, we're not going to do that? No, you may spend a lot of money and time.
The answer to that is theoretically yes.
Okay.
You can have done that whole process and then end up not building the project. I think the kind of conversations that that Steve Layton says we haven't had yet, those conversations are going to be held. And so as we get to these critical steps of, okay, are we going to do some more specific design? Are we going to submit an ENF? Okay, those conversations are going to play in.
Precisely, yes.
Okay.
Yeah,
It's a lot of moving parts that are gonna.
That's right.
That will
Come together.
gradually mesh.
that's right.
You just want to make sure they're balanced.
Yes.
That no one of them goes too far into the details and the high costs of
Right.
substantial design
That's why-
ahead of the other one.
If you don't think it's going to be
That's why,
done.
that's why we're here.
Right.
Anything else on the inlet widening?
Mr. Chairman.
Comment on inlet widening?
Okay,
Very briefly. One of the significant differences between inlet widening and sewering or even eco toilets or any of the other alternatives is the immediacy of the benefit. And I think when you're doing, I would suggest when the committee does a cost benefit analysis, they understand that if you're reducing by, 20 to 50% the concentration of nitrogen, it's an immediate effect.
Yes.
Where the
Got it.
other effects take 20 years
Yeah.
to actually reach improving the estuary.
That's a good point.
I wouldn't say 20 years,
No,
but
no,
it
no.
takes us a longer.
If there was a way to put a cost on that, that would be fantastic.
Yes.
Okay, inlet widening, any further comments? Okay, next, we're gonna move on to report from Jerry on the status of the CWMP, which was adopted by the Board of Selectmen on the 30th of July with minor changes, and where are we now?
To August 15th, to wrap up.
Okay, where are we now?
It's going to MEPA tomorrow. Based on that schedule, there'll be an environmental monitor on the 5th. The comment period closes on 10/5. This decision will be due on 10/12 if there's no exceptions. We met today briefly, just to give the Cape Cod Commission a heads up, because they do have to hold a hearing. They gave us a couple of dates of 2, 3, or 4 October to have a hearing. That would be if this schedule is held to, or they don't ask for a week or 2 extension. So I think we're well on the way there. I've given Eric copies of the inserted pages that you can put in
Right.
your folders if you bring them next week. Sia will bring her GBC and we can insert those things for you.
Okay, for
Yeah,
those,
got it.
for those who don't know what a GBC is, it's a machine that puts these pages into your volume that you already have. I can hold these till the next meeting, and I'll bring the volume in, or is there another way to deal with it?
That's a good way.
That's
If you go down to Staples, you might talk them into it.
Well, if we can bring your volume in next week, and you'll bring your GBC, whatever it is.
I don't go anyplace without my copy of it, so.
I
if
have
you
it,
need me to
yeah.
go to my
I'm
car right
ready.
now and get it, I can get it.
I'm ready.
Oh, I think he's got it.
July's version, anyway.
All right, so we'll hold these till then.
Okay.
That, July 30th has been posted on the web. It's on the web as of tonight. I think it went on yesterday, but I won't guarantee. But it's there tonight. In addition, on the web, yes, the whole report, not just the changes.
I
We
know,
had
but
to
the
take
changes are in there?
The changes are in there. When you
Okay,
go to
sorry.
it, you have to be careful, because volume 2, you open up an appendix, and there's 5 other things nested under there. It's no easy way, because I talked with George, how you post this thing. I mean, we could have 55 different links to open. So you open up volume 2, you'll open up appendix 1, and within appendix 1, there could be another whole list of figures and things like that. It's the best we can do online. Try it.
Steve?
I actually, when I think, Ron, you made a comment about, is it posted or not, it was sort of at the bottom of the list. And
Yeah.
I changed the numbering to move it to the top.
On yours, okay, good.
But what would be very helpful is, everything you're sort of saying, Jerry, if somebody can sort of put on one clean piece of paper, the fact that you can go read at the library, or you can go find it at this other location,
Right.
and this is the date that comments start, and this is the date they close, and where the comments have to go, I will make that the #1 document on our home webpage, if you can give me.
We need to
Yeah,
get
if one or the other you can make
official
that, I will,
Yes.
I will be more than willing to get it
Right, on
posted
the
up.
dates.
We need to get official information from the Cape Cod Commission.
I understand that there's that part, but just, if the clock's gonna start, I'd like to be able to put a thing right at the top of our home webpage that says, here's how you go find the documents. I carried this with me to figure out if they were, the last post you gave was still current, because I went and checked it a little bit, I was getting a little
Yeah,
confused.
the posting will say,
Okay.
the chapter in July
Gotcha.
30th, 2012.
Yeah, okay.
The other one said July 2012. In addition, you'll find on there, we got all the MEP reports for all the other estuaries. You'll see a link that says MEP reports 2012. That's for Inner Harbor, Grants Pond, everything less Magansett and Salt Pond. They're up there for information. We'll just leave that right now.
Yeah, the thing people were interested in is the final version of the CWMP draft as approved by the selectmen. And you're telling us that is on our website at the top of the list at this time?
Yeah, it's at the top now.
Okay, good. People should have that.
And just,
Hilda,
Yes, I would like to know. if
speak
this
up to the
also-
microphone.
Is this information going to be in the newspaper of when people can comment, or which date?
We should put,
Which date to
we
which
should
date
definitely
is
send
available
a
for
notice off
comments,
to
and
them.
where to
I'll
send
let
it to? All that kind of information should be readily available to the public.
that has to come from MEPA because it's their, not MEPA, Cape Cod Commission. And MEPA.
I'm willing-
When we get that, we'll,
Yeah, but I'm willing to write a letter on behalf of this committee to the enterprise saying that we've done this, it's published, and if you want to know how to make a comment, you can go
oh,
to the
that's
spot.
fine, yeah.
You know, just to
Right, okay. That would be helpful.
push it up.
Thanks.
Okay.
Now, for the other thing, the agriculture closed yesterday. We got 3 proposals, one from Normanville Associates, one from the Woods Hole Group, and one from MBL. I don't know who they're teaming with, whether there are any local fishermen or things like that, but, you know. these are
Would you
all
say
local.
again, Norman Doe,
Woods Hole Group
Woods Hole Group?
and MBL.
Is this a person at MBL or the whole institution?
Well, Scott Lindell said it, so I think it's the Marine Research Lab. Had said MBL and Scott signed the transmittal.
Who's the first one?
He's the one that's doing the algae?
Right.
That we were.
So I don't know anything about the teaming arrangements, and then Julian
That's
will
how I-
select
Okay, yeah.
and review panel.
Right.
The, let's see, as Virginia said, the engineer and inlet widening one, the proposals are due next Wednesday. The PRB will be available next Thursday. We'll have a pre-conference on the 13th, which is 1 week later, and then 1 week later, about 1 week later, I think I gave them a few extra days. The PRB one proposal is due, and then I'll be working to get most likely the Oyster Pond one out and the stormwater one out. There's a possibility that the committee may, since the stormwater one is relatively small, we could go with that one, which is around 100,000, or you could just nest that in immediately to the contractor, the omnibus contractor. It might give you a heads up, it might not. I do have a question that I wasn't sure, is the 100,000 just for design?
Well,
or is it
this is not,
construction?
this is not today's issue.
Okay, all right, I
Uh,
just-
Let's,
okay.
let's stick
All
with, we have plenty of
You're right.
today's issues to deal
So
with.
I-
So,
I think that's it.
okay, we seem to have jumped out of number 7, which Ron had some comments on.
Oh,
Or
okay.
have we kind of addressed your
Well,
concern?
That's what we're talking
The
about.
the PRBs?
Yeah, well, on the PRB, yeah, right, but specifically, on these, well, on all of these really, but particularly on the ones that are going to take some time for permitting, different things, it would be good to start that as soon as possible, rather than waiting.
You're talking about PRBs right now.
Yeah, yeah, we're in the
And What's your
PRBs.
time frame on that?
We'll have it in within 3 weeks from next week, then it might take a couple of weeks. We can't start permitting until they do the analysis of the potential sites.
No, what I'm talking about is more generalized in the sense that we know how we would be approaching if there was a big PRB component based on the demonstrations. If something came out from that that showed it was followed what Steve was saying about cost effective and it's a quick intervention because it stops the nitrogen at the gate, so to speak.
Consultants will tell us that.
Yeah.
Remember, we go from site selection to a demonstration
Right.
PRB. The demonstration PRB may be a lot smaller than if someone was saying we were going to do one whole side of a peninsula.
Right.
The demonstration PRB, I don't know if it's going to be even 1,000 feet. We won't know. So that we can only take it one step at a time. During the consultant's review,
Right.
they'll tell us the regulatory hurdles we have to satisfy depending on where
Okay.
we put it. Put it in the street, that's one issue. You put it 100 feet from a wetland, that's another issue.
That's right.
Okay,
You can't prejudge that. And we know that now.
right,
And that's in the scope of work,
right,
to look at the
Okay.
regulatory.
right, it's just, yeah, okay, basically.
You've somehow, it seems to me, Ron, that you've somehow or other concluded that the permitting process for PRBs is the critical path to implementing a PRB. What's your basis for that?
No, that's not what I was saying. What I'm trying to say is that the process of looking at a demonstration is one thing, and looking at a much larger implementation may be a different approach. In other words, I know that there's a certain area of disturbance within a wetland that's allowed by our own Concom, basically, or MEPA, to a certain extent. If you get a larger area, like if it's 1 acre total impact, you may be able to do that. If it exceeds that, then it goes into other permitting processes of different agencies that have to be approached. So it's just understanding all of that. Now, the consultants, maybe, if they're looking at the larger scale, if it's relatively small scale, it may be within certain thresholds that would be okay, but if we went bigger later or broader application, there may be other dimensions, other agencies.
So what I'm hearing you suggest is that when we have a consultant on board for the PRBs,
Right,
and they develop their permitting approach and plan going forward, they have to be sensitive to both the small scale and large scale permitting issues.
yeah, if that's, that could be, if that's something to be discussed in the pre-bid meeting
An
or whatever.
example would be the wetlands permit,
Yeah.
the generic permit. for
I
wetlands.
suggest, I think I sent an email to everybody about
Yeah.
not going too far about changing scopes.
Yeah,
I would suggest that things like that, once we have a firm that we feel really comfortable with and we're doing final scopes of work, we can clarify any sort of, I don't want to say it's a minor issue, but, clarify what we
Right.
mean about permitting.
Yeah, and I think it's the definition of a generic permit for wetlands versus the Corps of Engineers comes in. That's a threshold, Jen can tell you right now.
yeah,
You don't need a consultant to tell you.
right.
You just trigger.
It's just, on this though, if the terms of reference are specific or don't, or it's better not to change the scope there, it is within the engineer's terms of reference to look at this as well. So it could be that certain things could be focused on the demonstration more, and then the other would be shifted to the engineer's view, because it's an option in there.
Now defer
Yeah,
to Steve.
yeah.
The scope is out there.
Yeah,
We don't discuss changes to the scope.
Right.
Until we've selected a consultant, we see the price, and we
Okay.
discuss how it approaches.
That's the process we're in.
okay.
Yes.
Okay, anything else on number 7? Status of PRBs, road runoff, oyster pond, and issuance dates? We've got our pretty good calendar here.
Quick question.
Steve?
When did you say the oyster pond one?
I didn't.
Oh, when?
Well, hopefully it could be by the end of this month. It should, yeah.
I'm not pressuring you. People are
Well,
just
no,
gonna
it's
ask.
a question. I'm
Sure.
gonna, and I know I'm going off target, it just depends, do you wanna meet now once a week or twice a week? Because when this information comes in, the times, we may get it on a Tuesday, hopefully we'll get it 48 hours before the meeting. And we're gonna have to make decisions. So it can go, it go out, let's say 1 October, we won't start hitting the road till mid-November probably. By the time we get things in, we evaluate it, we have pre-conferences.
Thank you.
Okay, number 6, actually, we have some happy news, I think. Shellfish Viability Initiative. Steve,
It's either Ron or myself. You want to tell the good news, Ron, or you want me to spit it out?
You're the captain.
I will give total kudos to Ron and Matt and help me out.
Dan.
And Dan. We got free oysters, basically. We got free gear. We've got cooperation. They've been out there. It's sort of phenomenal to watch these things grow at about a 1/4 inch a week or every week and a half.
Yeah.
I don't think there's any substantive news to offer about lack of viability. The news is all about viability on these things. They grow. You know, if there's mortality, it's hard to see any mortality, either in Green Pond or Little Pond. The biggest problem we're going to have is figuring out how to destroy them here come the fall. But we'll tackle that like we've tackled everything else. But no, I mean, I cannot, you know, public citizens that step forward and really sort of participate. I mean, Dan and Matt have beyond all the other things they do, have really helped to make the viability test be a real test and happen.
I think you should clarify it's Dan, Matt Weeks, not me, so people know.
Yeah, I think that's right.
Matt's been on the committee and has been instrumental as well. I didn't mean to leave you off. But no, it's. I mean, I didn't know this, but I mean, you look at them, and as they grow, the outside edge is sort of darker color, and you know, you can literally go from week to week and look at them and see as they. I mean, they started off about like that, right?
Yeah.
You know, not much bigger than that, and they're all in this range right now.
Oh.
They're very happy.
Terrific.
Happy clams, happy oysters.
Happy oysters.
Yeah. Just a couple more, I'd like to recognize a few more folks as well
Please.
in this, is that Paul Afsa in Little Pond and the T-Ticket Civic Association.
They've been very
It's
supportive.
been very supportive. And then when we went to put them in at the end of Narragansett Street, where Paul gave us access to his dock and everything there to do, and boats even if we needed them, that you know, he was very, very supportive. And then the neighbors came around and it got really interesting. We're discussing it and this kind of thing. So that was very nice. And also then in Green Pond, we have Jack Rowe, who offered his dock, which is in the southern part of the pond, which was very nice to do. When we put 3 of them in there to start with. And then Barbara Schneider and I guess it's the Sandcastle community, allowed us to use their dock. So we now have today, as of today, we have one place there, moved to that point, and then there's another one that's on a cement block somewhere else in the pond. So we've got them spread around a bit, and so the communities have come together, and it had to go to the Sandcastle board and this kind of thing. So so it was it's been great from very receptive
Public
at this point.
yeah.
It's been very
And the
good.
other side of that is that I think almost without exception, every Cape community at one level or another is evaluating oysters and their value to the estuaries and what they do or don't do. And when we started the Shellfish Committee, I started a sort of an email list of firms and names, and I just keep adding to it. And so once we get into our next stage, I think there's a lot of what I would call Cape-wide community here that might help to keep pushing the aquaculture thing along with. I think we had a comment this week from somebody in the vineyard with some questions. They heard that we were doing some work and they wanted to know how we got to where we got to because they were stumbling with the Division of Marine Fisheries. So there's a very committed community of people, environmental, shell fishermen and whatnot, that really want to kind of keep making this go forward.
That's terrific.
Just one more. Chuck Martinson also did a lot of.
Chuck's phenomenal.
He's been great, very supportive. Did a
Phenomenal.
lot of coordination with the state, with the DMF.
Excellent.
Jerry Moles from the DMF, Mike Hickey. I mean, it's been a nice multi-leveled lateral thing. So it's
The next step of ramping it up in Little Pond will become an interesting exercise.
Yeah.
But I think we've done a lot of people put a lot of time in to lay the groundwork so that it's not just a guess. It's got some substance to it. It's got a place to go.
That's terrific. I'd like to report on the second half of that, which is the summer of 2012 monitoring of the Little Pond. That you two in particular, I think, we're keen on having done. It's been done.
Thank you.
The SMAS people did it pro bono.
Oh.
If we want the information treated and collated and whatever, we will probably have to pay for that, but the information has been gathered.
As it was laid out in the format
For the entire month of August.
Okay.
Whatever you said what you wanted them to do, they did. But
Okay, so we'll see, because they were going to possibly continue in September. We'll see if they do that as well. Yeah.
Unless we tell them to stop.
Okay. No, fine. No, it's great. Excellent.
Yeah,
That's good news.
So it'll be available.
That's great. Okay,
great.
thanks.
Okay, which brings us to item number 1, which is the baseline monitoring proposed contract. that Sia and Jerry and SMAS have been working very hard on these last few days and recent days. In your handout, it's number 1. I printed out the 6 or 7 pages.
I didn't get the handout.
involved.
Oh, you,
I think you do.
can you give Ron that?
No, I brought my own copies, but maybe,
Okay, there is a handout, I think I had an extra.
Everybody,
How many pages is that?
That's the big one.
It's 10, I guess.
It's like 10 pages.
10 plus a graph at the end.
4,
I can,
5,
well,
I can share mine.
Here, you go. I'll show you.
should
9,
have been enough.
This
I
one?
have,
That one,
10 plus is this? No. I have 10 pages and that's it.
and
then
the
this-
graph.
Oh, this is part of it,
That's
okay.
part of it. There
oh,
you
no,
go.
it's okay, I printed, I have
Okay,
everything.
you have that,
I
okay,
have
well,
everything.
keep that packet, because there's other stuff in there.
Okay, all right,
You might not have printed.
Right at the back.
okay,
I
I
separated
might,
mine out, but
okay, I may have it all.
Okay, Jerry and Sia, you are on. We all have copies of this now in front of our faces, so.
Okay, well, assuming you've had a chance to at least look at it.
Yes.
It's a scope of work
This is what we're
for
talking
3
about now.
distinct
this is all the
tasks.
other ones.
One is baseline monitoring for establishing the efficacy of the demonstration programs. There is an analysis of existing data through 2011, and that would be task 2. And the third is a budget for West Falmouth Harbor. And so those were 3. If you look on page, the numbers start on page 6. 6 and 7 is task 1. 8, page 8 is task 2. And then page 10 is task 3.
Oh, I have a different number. Okay, well, whatever.
Sorry.
Okay.
I could have,
Well, in honesty, task 3, West Falmouth Harbor, probably is not within the scope of funding ability. They put it in there because I asked for it.
Right.
If I needed to do it for permit purposes.
Right.
So that's
Yeah.
why we broke out the 3 tasks. So tonight the committee could endorse 1 and 2 tasks. I think the 3rd task you could comment on, but I don't think you have funding to implement it.
But that was going to be my question anyway, what's Falmouth doing in here, but that's a good answer.
But I want a placeholder sometime later on how to fund it. So any positive motion would not be recommending you approve 1, 2, and 3. It would be
Okay.
1 and 2.
So the task 1 budget is at 39,800 plus the 6,800?
yes,
All right, and that's on page 5 in my document.
yes. I want to talk a little bit about.
Could you walk
task
us
1.
through this all?
Yeah, I'm gonna walk you through it. I'm gonna start with task 3 because I think it's the easiest. I don't think this is under Article 17.
No, we-
Jerry can confirm it. So I would say, don't trouble ourselves with task number 3 because it's not part of what the Water Quality Management Committee is authorized to do under Article 17 for funding. So task number 2, I'm going backwards because it goes from simpler to more complicated. Task 2 is a very simple task of synthesizing and analyzing the existing data. They have a 24,876 budget for that, for a synthesis of the existing data on the 6 estuaries. And I would recommend having that work go forward since the committee has wanted the
Trends.
trends. And so that's what the price tag from SMAST is for that. And so I think that's very straightforward. They're saying that's what it's gonna take their analysts, senior staff to do that.
Okay, it does include West Falmouth Harbor, and it doesn't seem to include Waquoit Bay
That's right, it doesn't.
or Eel Pond.
Right.
Is that because that the Pond Watch, does the Pond Watch do what Coit?
No,
Okay.
Mashpee is
That's why I
paying
think
for it
that-
now, but they're gonna be looking, excuse me for
Yeah,
speaking.
sure.
Mashpee is doing it now, and they are looking for money from us to help pay for that. But they're doing the whole
Okay.
Waquoit Bay and Eel Pond.
Okay, and in West Falmouth, you told us as task 3 not to be concerned about it, and here it is. In task 2, so how do we explain?
for historical trending, not for doing a full-blown
Okay,
analysis.
I'll move on.
Yeah, I'm just, if I look at the green sheet,
Yes.
it says and I think is it under this topic, monitoring, baseline data and monitoring of impact of demonstration projects, pre and post construction surveys, sampling and water quality monitoring. It doesn't say where specifically. In this, 250,000 was sort of the indicative amount.
That's a fair point.
It doesn't really say where, it just says that would be, yeah. It could, I mean, there may be, there's a possibility of a PRB in West Falmouth, right? I mean, that was a discussion at some point.
That's true, too.
Well, that's true. You would need a before and after if you did a PRB there.
That's true, I mean,
And that gets to sort of the larger discussion of task one. And the way this proposal came in, it showed each estuary, if you look on my page 4, but it shows
Yep.
each estuary, how many stations exist right now. There's a table that looks like this.
Yeah,
Is it the
we'll have
table?
to follow, but
This
okay.
is the table. So the table has existing stations, a recommendation for additional stations, and then the number of samples that they would want to take in each station. They aggregated monitoring for all of these estuaries at a baseline that is currently being conducted by pond watchers or the sea, I forget what it's called.
BDC.
Yeah,
Buzzards Bay Cove.
yeah, or a consortium that includes Mashpee. So the budget for task 1 was 1 year, one year of sampling, the baseline that they're currently doing. We went back to them after this original proposal came forward at the end of the day on Monday and said, what are you recommending for baseline monitoring for the purposes of establishing the efficacy of demonstration projects? And then we got a revised proposal, and that revised proposal went out to everybody that showed some examples, that showed an example of Bourne's Pond and an example of Little Pond. And in those examples, what they're saying is, if you should be collecting this baseline, that's basically what is being collected now. When you get 2 or 3 seasons before the implementation of a demonstration project, in other words, if you know you're gonna do shellfish, 1 or 2 or 3 seasons before, you should start increasing what they're calling the sampling events, which means you sample the same stations more frequently during the sampling season. And you continue that for 1 or 2 years afterwards. So their recommendation is to keep the sampling stations generally where they are, increase the number of events, that is the number of times that they sample at those stations over the course of the sampling season. And they have certain areas where they'd like a couple of additional sampling stations, and those included West Falmouth Harbor, an additional one at Quistit Harbor, Fiddler's Cove, Rand's Canal, and Wild Harbor, because they felt that the existing number of stations was not enough for establishing appropriate baselines. However, for pricing purposes, they only gave examples, but didn't break it out if we wanted to do all of the estuaries all of the time. And so what we need to do as a committee, and I don't know if we're gonna do it tonight or if we should break out a baseline monitoring subcommittee, which is what I was gonna recommend, is to say, let's decide which estuaries we wanna have a budget for baseline monitoring on, and set out the actual protocol and get a price for that estuary. Because this isn't quite what we needed in terms of a price, and we went back and forth a little bit, and so they needed some, and I wasn't in a position to say do Bourne's Pond, Little Pond, and West Falmouth Harbor. But I was in a position to say, understanding that we are looking at Bourne's Pond and Little Pond, at least we have sort of an order of magnitude of what baseline monitoring would be for those, and they are the examples, I have it on page 4, it says Bourne's Pond example. It says cost of 4 events per year baseline at Pond Watcher Station only is $5,400. Then they say if you're gonna do,
I don't find that.
Yeah, where are you?
I'm on
It's,
page
for us,
5.
it's page 5.
Page 5. So there's an example here for Bourne's Pond.
Okay.
And the 4 events per year baseline at the Pond Watcher Station is what is going on right now. This is currently being done. And their cost for that is $5,400.
I don't even see a 5,400 on my.
Yeah, just
I don't know.
It's on page 5, it's there. First,
Did you put what
find the heading, Bourne's Pond example.
I don't find one
It's
on
not on
page.
that ARPA.
On page 5.
It's not
He's
anywhere.
one
on-
version,
Oh.
he's
We
one
printed-
version behind.
Printed out a different version. Is that
Second,
possible?
I'll
I
look
guess
what
it
I
is.
got.
I only sent out, did you send out?
It was confusing, I apologize.
Okay.
I have a, this is a different, this
But,
document is
but
different
keep
from the
going,
one.
keep going, I mean, they put an example out, they put an example out
These are
there.
the numbers.
We have to see the
I have
numbers,
the
though. We
right
can't-
document here.
I only made
This
one
is the wrong
copy.
document.
Just a second,
It-
let me
Why don't
just.
you take a look at the one we have and see if you can
It's
identify?
not in there.
Oh, it's not in
There
there.
are,
This is
because
August
this is what's
27th.
happened. There was an original
I have it.
proposal.
Yeah, but
I have
that's,
it here.
right.
I took it off the
You
net.
printed it out,
Yeah.
the later version, okay.
Yeah,
Later version.
I have it here.
I have it also,
I also have
but it's not in, this is a
it. But
different
it's
version.
not what you handed out.
No,
Right,
well, I
right.
apologize
No,
for
it's
that.
okay.
Okay, put this aside.
Okay.
We'll get together.
It was intentional, I'm sure.
The idea is to get the concept of how much it's gonna cost.
Give me the old one.
We got a report on,
So I won't get
we got a
confused,
proposal
I mean.
on Monday that didn't have any specificity with
Yeah.
respect to specific
Right.
estuaries and what baseline monitoring was gonna cost in those estuaries. What we got is an aggregate number for the current baseline monitoring. But that was not the purpose of this baseline monitoring. So between Monday afternoon and Tuesday afternoon, I went back and forth, and Jerry went back and forth, and Eric apparently went back and forth with the SMAS, with Brian Howes and Roland, to try to tease out some budget numbers for what we were looking for. And what we got, not ideal, but a starting point, was the cost of monitoring for the purposes of implementing a demonstration project. And that recommendation takes what is currently being done, 4 events per year. They sample all the stations 4 times a year. For the purposes of establishing a baseline on which to judge the efficacy of a demonstration project, the recommendation from SMAS is to double that, 8 events per year. So the cost for Bourne's Pond to establish a baseline for inlet widening, for shellfish propagation, for whatever demonstration project is going to be $10,800 per year.
When you say 8 events instead of 4, are these different dates or different what?
Different dates.
Different dates.
So longer in the season?
More.
More dates, so 8 times a month, or 8 times in 2 months instead of 4 times in 2 months?
That's what they recommended, and this, frankly, is where there
Season.
needs to be discussion with Mass DEP
Right.
and Cape Cod Commission and whomever else we feel is appropriate to vet this proposal for how the sampling should be done temporally and how it should be done, spatially. So are we gonna keep the same stations? We all comfortable with that? That's first question. Second question is, every other week, go into September, start in April, or just do them weekly instead of, twice a month? The thing to understand is that it's $10,800, and then the other question is, how many years in advance? 1 year or 2 years, or 3 years? And how many years after the demonstration project has been put in? 1 year or 2 years? So there's some recommendations that we talked about.
Could I just interject at
Sure.
that point? I thought this was a yearly contract, so if we wanted to continue for a second year or third year, that would be funded later. Am I wrong in that conjecture?
We could set it up any number of ways with placeholders, that we're authorizing next this coming year at this amount, and a future amount to be, a future contract to be decided. The question would be, when we go in front of the selectmen, do we ask them to preload it so that we're comfortable next year, we can execute a contract without going back in front of them? And we'll
Right.
tell, you know, that
Right.
we're asking for 3-year funding, but the first contract will be for 1 year.
For 1 year. And the other piece of my thinking is whether we then have to earmark funds in Article 17 for that 3-year period. Or are we just doing it for 1 year and figuring we'll fund it with something else later? So I'm just trying to understand what you said and what these dollars mean.
Right.
And I think we're looking at an annual dollar here.
Yes, we are. We are
Okay,
absolutely. That
so-
was
so
the
at this-
point exactly I was trying to make.
Okay, these are annual dollars
This is for a
at this
year
point.
of that effort, of that sampling.
Right.
When,
These two figures would be for 1 year for the 2 ponds, right, which is $38,700 for 1
She
year.
doesn't know what figures you're pointing at.
Oh, the figures, the
15,200
15,200 and the
and
23,000, the one
23,500,
she's talking about, yeah,
yes.
is that. So then if I go to the next page, there's an odd inconsistency, because it talks about the total water quality monitoring program toward the bottom of page 6.
That's a different thing.
That's a different thing.
That is, that's what I said in the beginning. What I said in the beginning is what they gave us the budget for originally.
Yeah,
This 39.8 plus what's coming out with the, plus the 68
yeah,
for a variety of different estuaries, was not what its title is. The title is total water quality monitoring.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's not at all what it is.
oh,
That is the cost of what is currently being done.
okay, well, that's my confusion. Okay, so that's the cost of what's being done, and
Right.
so it's going to be ramped up then possibly
It will, yes. So if we want.
to almost
Barnes
that much
Pond-
per year as opposed to 4 years, which is what this equals down here. Okay, it's almost the same per year.
For each pond, I think it would be fair to say, we're looking at least for Bourne's Pond, we're looking at $15,200 for 1 year.
Yeah,
For Little Pond, we're looking at $23,500 for 1 year. And so as we add estuaries that we want to have baseline monitoring for, the annual expense is going to go up somewhere in that range. I don't know how many,
Okay.
how many stations there are in each. I could probably look up. Now, I didn't actually
One,
do that.
one factor that explains some of this is that currently the pond watchers is a freebie.
mm-hmm,
SMAS is bearing the cost of that. They do not intend to have it continue to be a freebie. They're building in the costs of the pond
Yeah,
watchers
yeah.
into our bill, which is something that up till now we haven't been paid for, been paying for.
right, but, yeah, but this, the cost on the next page is what it actually costs SMAS now, right? And then we're going to change, this is the proposal. Okay, this needs to be kind of cleared up a little bit. This needs to be-
We'll be discussing this.
Mr.
Yeah.
Chair,
Yeah,
just a clarification, and this is a question, I think that actually getting the samples is done by volunteers. We've always had to pay for the analysis, I thought. The analyses do cost money. Unless BBC is paying for that. No, so.
It's true. We have to pay for the analysis, we have to pay for the data.
You brought up
data.
a good point, that I didn't realize the Pond Watchers program, for who's funding them, is sunsetting. That escaped me. In other words, you're saying we may have to pick up the entire cost for Pond Watchers sometime in the future?
Yes, that's my understanding of, their premise is that they've been paying for it out of their own pocket, or out of SMAS's pocket, and that other towns carry the cost of collecting the data in those towns, and that our town should too.
And that's what the 40-something, the 39.8 plus the
That's worth
68.
learning more about.
Right, and I didn't get into that, frankly, wasn't getting into that as much as I was trying to understand what their proposal.
No, I understand, this is very complicated stuff, you're doing real well.
So my sense is that there's a baseline that Pond Watchers has currently been doing, that embedded in this proposal is a request for Falmouth to start funding. And I'm just gonna add these together so we have them.
not entirely transparent, yeah.
No, it's not at all.
Right, I mean, what I'm hearing you say, Sia, I'm kind of should do the big picture rather than like the last dollar of this. That someplace between 4 and 6 years of time is probably necessary before and after anything in these estuaries to be sampling data and getting the data, getting the samples analyzed and the data pushed through. And that each year for any one estuary we do this in, it will be some number between 10,000 and 20,000. Let's use 15 as an average, okay? If we go to the fact that right now we're looking at 5 of these estuaries, right, under the sort of the narrow focus, and you run that out, that's around $70,000 per estuary to do multi-year sampling, $300,000 total just to do the 5 we have. If you take the entire list of the 14 estuaries in town, that's I'm just putting it out there. It's a $700,000 to $800,000 number for baseline water quality sampling and monitoring over time. There's nuances to these numbers, but we've got a budget out of Article 17 for baseline water quality that does not hit 300.
No.
It's 250,000.
It does not hit 300.
Right.
So we are, as I'm looking at this, and I'm seeing multiple estuaries in here that are not in the original purview, and I appreciate, Juan, you picking up the language that we could extend it to other ones. Once we make a commitment to do this, it's money foolishly spent if we start something and after 3 years don't have enough money to keep continuing. Back to your point, Virginia, whether we're funding 1 year or multiple years, because it's almost like if we start a program, we need to stick with it. Because I don't think the data's much good if you don't take it for a few years before a demo and then for a couple years after.
Part of it is what demos we go ahead with. If some of the demos,
Exactly.
sewer may all, for West Falmouth, the permit says we take 1 sample. I don't believe we take 1 sample and live by that 1 sample. I would if it said we met it. So I think we have to grow with this because the state eventually, and even the county, is gonna sort of come up with a post-TMDL monitoring program. So I think it's good we're thinking about it, but I'm beginning to think 1 year at a time, and as we go with demonstration projects, we focus it in, because this is a lot more money than I had thought, and West Falmouth blew me away when I saw that and I knew what the permit said.
Ron, then Steve.
I'm just wondering though, I mean, these examples that we have here are kind of extraordinary compared to the 14 estuaries, because like for Little Pond, a lot of it's focused on the oyster demonstration or the shellfish demonstration, right? And the Bourne's Pond is focused on the inlet widening demonstration. Now some of the, like Great Pond, we may not have a demonstration, we're probably not inlet widening. Green Pond, probably not inlet widening. So the thing is that the basic pond watch existing kind of monitoring that's going on now may meet the needs. So the cost may be less than using these as examples and then blowing them up a bit. But it's still going to be sizable. Even this is a lot of money, okay, basically. So, but, yeah.
There's just 5 depressing negative thoughts that occurred to me along through the talk. So first, we don't know where the PRBs are going to be. I'm not sure we even know where the oysters are going to be. Second, Mass DEP has to approve this. Third, high-frequency sampling does not remove systematic annual noise.
Based on the information you've seen so far.
Right. I mean, it might reduce it a little bit, but if there's a systematic, if you have a bad year, there's no measuring it every day.
Yeah.
Doesn't tell you anymore. And how far ahead of time must the measurements start for each of the demonstrators? I don't know. And finally, we have no independent expert advice on this. It's getting to be a sufficiently large expenditure. If a physician tells you to do something complicated, you don't start quizzing him on how many gauzes he's going to use. You either say okay, or you consult another physician. I mean, this is way beyond the level that any of us can judge whether you either trust Brian and say, okay, do it, or you hire someone for a fraction of $700,000, a small fraction, to give you some independent advice.
Can I add number
Virginia.
6? And that is that he's used our needs for some baseline monitoring to load on everything else. So Rand's Canal, Fiddler's Cove need extra stations. So our specific important objectives have been blurred by some baggage that maybe that fits his overall monitoring scheme, but it should not have appeared in this draft.
Could we,
Can I throw a positive thought here, which is all this baseline monitoring that he has been doing but not pursuing,
Not processing.
brings us up to the present day.
Right.
So we can get that at a reasonably small cost.
that task would be.
That's task 2.
Task
So,
two.
so that's our
24,000.
that's our base. That's
Right.
cheap, and
I
that's the base.
recommended just doing that.
So that's
Yeah.
that's an easy one. But
24.8, and then we want to clarify West Falmouth Harbor
right.
and whether it should be in here or a separate item, but it, I mean. we
Up to
would-
the committee, I mean, we're gonna put a PIB there, so for 24,000, if it includes West Falmouth Harbor, that's not a lot of money to divert. You know, that's just an analysis of the existing data.
Right.
It shows us either the trend is the same or got worse.
It's 1 out of 6.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's a given. We want that one. And there's no
Okay.
no question. I mean,
So that's task 2.
am I
Right.
right? That's cheap. It's already out there.
Yeah.
And I think before we get everybody alarmed with these big numbers, what they say in this proposal is that they want to maintain this higher level of events, that is, staying stations more frequently in the growing season, for 3 years after we implement a demonstration in an estuary. So what they're saying is, for a year or 2 prior, they'd want to up the events. But afterwards, so we wouldn't be doing this afterwards in all the estuaries. We'd say we put shellfish in Little Pond or Green Pond, and in that estuary, we're monitoring the demonstration project. That doesn't mean you go doing all the other estuaries. It's one estuary, not 15 of them.
Right.
Half it's DEP, what they're gonna require.
That's right.
They may say half of these stations are enough, or due to the uncertainty of shellfish, they may say, no, you have to do this, because it's the only way we're gonna have, believe in the
That's
numbers.
also the vetting, right,
The
that's
vetting.
part of the vetting of the.
Steve had a really good point, which is doubling the frequency of the testing doesn't necessarily provide you with anything you didn't have already.
It's complicated, but obviously there's an extreme at which I'm right. A little bit might help you, but
Yeah.
it's an incredibly complicated question.
Yeah.
None of us know the answer.
Just on this, on that particular point, Little Harbor this year, for the first time, is very turbid. Eelgrass is being grown, stuff's growing on top of it. I've never seen it before in the last almost 40 years that I've been swimming and have a boat in Little Harbor. And so it's a big impact. And one of the real indicators was that I noticed that a lot of barnacles growing on the bottom of my boat for the first time. And I have photo-activated bottom paint, so it doesn't have metals and stuff like that in it. And when I went down to look to see how bad it was, I couldn't even see that far. It was so dark underneath there that the photo-active. So this is a point and I don't know, apparently Great Harbor's having the same problem this year.
Every place. And it's not just in the estuary, it's out in the bay.
Yeah.
If
Yeah,
you run into
Great
this-
Harbor Woods Hole.
You can't see clear water in the bay,
Right, wow.
because it's bay.
Yeah.
So there's something going on.
Something going on, yeah.
Higher.
Warmer,
it's
you've
been-
got warmer water temperatures.
And that's where, if you go out again tomorrow and learn the
It'll
same
same
It'll
thing.
thing,
still be warm,
Right.
or what?
right?
Since we're not gonna resolve the other tasks tonight,
Right.
maybe if we're comfortable with moving ahead with just that,
Task
One.
2.
task 2, we can have some positive information back to him.
Okay.
That, prepare a contract for task 2, and hopefully we'll get to the other one for MEP. We can roll that together, it's another 61,500 for salt
But
pond.
I think we want to hold that one until we have this other one squared away, and presuming it's going to be soon. Because-
Yeah, we'll go to the selectmen once, we just.
Right, exactly. We don't want to be visiting twice if we can help it.
I did have a question on task 2, where he says that there are only going to be 2 key metrics that they're going to look at, which is total nitrogen and chlorophyll A. And then a discussion of component nitrogen forms and inorganic nitrogen NP will be included. I don't know why he's not just doing a full data analysis of all the parameters he's been measuring. Why is he, I don't understand why he's limited it just to these two. Is that just?
This gets to the, do we ask
Yeah.
another doctor question?
Yeah.
Yeah.
He has made his own choices and
But he hasn't
suggestions.
explained, if he could
But
just
he hasn't
explain that,
ex-
that's all he has to do, is just why.
Have they been doing all the other things that they would?
Yeah.
Yeah, he listed,
Yeah.
when he sat here,
Well,
as I remember, it was 7. So,
Right.
so there's salinity and temperature and.
So that would double or triple the cost if he did all of them.
I think he was trying to do what we were asking, which was nitrogen.
Well, if you go to Mass DEP, what do you, and you ask them,
Right.
what do you think they're going to say?
Well, I thought you were going to go down, if you go to Mass DEP and say, if we were to retain somebody to check if Brian Howe's proposal is a reasonable proposal, who other than Brian Howe do they have faith in? Because if we get somebody and Mass DEP doesn't have faith in whoever we get, we're not going very far with a second opinion.
Are you saying that one answer they might give is that we have to use Brian Howe's and they'll believe anything he says?
Well, since you like to play extreme positions, that is one answer they could give. I doubt it.
It is.
Yes.
I doubt it, though.
But I mean, I'm just saying, it may be reasonable to ask Brian Dudley, is there somebody else that you would use?
Well, we got a whole bunch of
I-
scientists.
Going back to this question that started with Ron saying the trend analysis would be on certain specific things. He does note, it's down at the last paragraph, tabulated data for each water quality parameter will be included as an appendix. So we're going to be provided with the numbers,
Yes.
but the analysis, he's going to emphasize, is the target things that we're looking at. Chlorophyll A, which has to do with turbidity, and total nitrogen, which has to do with the loading.
Yeah.
So
And we get the
And we get the
I'm
data
okay,
we wanted.
and we get the data we wanted.
Somebody else can do the analysis
So I'm a
if
little
they
more
want.
comfortable now that I noticed that last line.
Yeah.
Right, but I don't, well, anyway, I don't want to, but from my viewpoint, chlorophyll A is not enough, because there's other stuff in the water besides phytoplankton. There's bacteria, there are other things that are,
I don't think
In the
they
water.
monitor for that now, though.
Right.
but there may be turbidity measurements that they're taking.
They're Secchi dish,
Secchi disc.
yes.
That would be one,
Okay,
that'd be
the
another,
Secchi
yeah.
disc.
And that's a simple thing
Yeah.
to look at, it's just the depth.
Okay, so if we want to
Yeah.
just have other things that you want as part of this task too, we should tell them.
So just add Secchi disc to the
If
trend
he has it,
analysis.
does he have that as baseline data
Ye-
analysis?
Yes,
Oh, okay, so
Yeah.
that's just printing it out.
It's going to
Well,
cost extra money.
That's just making sure the proposal, I mean, he's gonna have to send us a revised
Of
proposal.
course.
yeah.
And so we can add that.
And it's got to be written in such a way that we can pick and choose each one each time, so that we're not committed to a huge expenditure that we may not need.
Yeah.
Or
Well,
the
yeah,
DEP.
this is looking retrospectively, and we did say we wanted all of the data for all of the ponds, because at some point, you really are gonna need that. And since the MEP report goes up more or less to 2005 data, I would like it to say specifically, he's doing 2006 through 11. This just says up through 2011. Just so we know which span of years. That will be really useful. That's a long enough period of time for all of the estuaries for us to see whether there are real trends in each of those estuaries. That is useful information.
If they've been getting worse and been staying bad.
That's right,
Well,
that's
that's
right. Or they said at the Concom, they thought it had leveled off. They thought,
Yeah.
and so I think that was an interesting statement.
Based on
No, I
what?
think
I don't know.
yeah, right, I think, yeah, the loading might be, but the accumulation is still rising.
Yeah.
We'll wait and see
Yeah.
what the data says.
Yeah, and you're not talking 2005, you're talking about whenever the MEP report last gave you data.
Okay.
Because they're going to be
The
different years.
last published, I mean,
Right, that's true. It could
Okay.
not, the dates could be
Right,
different.
and Steve,
Gotcha.
I'm going to step back from the details and put a big picture out here, and I suggest that at some future meeting, we need to have an agenda item, Chair, to discuss really what the charge of this committee is. And I raise that because every time we deal with SMAST, we run into the fact that SMAST is dealing with the town of Falmouth and all the estuaries in the town of Falmouth. And we try to narrow it down to what we're working with for funding out of Article 17. But perhaps I think there's a need for some overall clarity as to what we believe this committee does or does not have responsibility for, and to what extent we have to go back to the Board of Selectmen and say, are we splitting apart what we're doing with the West Falmouth estuaries from the South coastal estuaries, and somebody else has got the West Falmouth estuaries other than this committee, or does this committee ultimately subsume that responsibility? Because clearly it's not easy for Brian to write up things. I mean, I really sort of appreciate this as kind of a little bit of a comprehensive view of what the town has got all in all, and we're trying to sort out the best thing for our short-term charge. And I don't want to go any further than that, but I don't want it to be dropped and not picked up at some point to get some clarification for the overall, what are we doing and where are we going as the big picture. So that's all I wanted to throw out there.
So from a more myopic perspective,
True.
can we get some decision, or do we need to discuss it next time, about which estuaries we think baseline monitoring is going to be
Desired, I'll pay
yeah,
for.
paid for? You know, which estuaries, can we specify?
So you've moved from discussion of task 2, you're back on
I'm back
task.
on task 1.
You're back
I
on-
think we've agreed that task 2 is that implementation. I mean, of course, there needs to be a vote, but we kind of go back and forth to
Okay.
the proposal, which is really task 1 and task 2. They're separate tasks, but they're part of the thing. To try to understand that at least 3 years of paying for the increase in events isn't going to happen until a demonstration project is implemented. And so, and then 1 or 2 years before, we may want, because we can't say specifically which 3 or 4 estuaries, I'm asking the question, can the Water Quality Management Committee give me a list of estuaries that we want baseline monitoring for? And then I can go to Brian tomorrow and say, please cost out a year's worth of baseline monitoring for these 5 estuaries. And how many years before we do the demonstration, before we implement, do you recommend 1 or 2? Because he was saying 1 or 2, and there's, a pretty big difference, $50,000 to $75,000.
Well, by way of answering your question and Steve's, the charge that the selectmen gave us when the committee was created does reference the CWMP. And it continues to reference that only. It does not involve Bourne's Canal, or Bourne-Rand's Canal. Or
I don't think it does.
It doesn't involve
Unless the selectmen change the
anything
charge.
outside of the water bodies we've been dealing with up till now. So adding to the list would be something that's not on our charge.
So who picks up the rest of it?
Well, I
Well,
suppose,
ultimately, it might be this committee, but I think it's going to be done as a deliberate process, not a presumption.
No, that's why I want to put it as a discussion in the future, that how do we bring that up, that,
Oh, with the
Briefing to
selectmen.
and
yeah,
maybe the town meeting.
they'd have to come visit us,
Aye.
visit the issue again. But right now, we're limited to the CWMP and Article 17 issues. Right.
And since the latest version of the plan includes West Falmouth
Falmouth,
Harbor,
right.
Yeah.
then that's one West Falmouth watershed that
That's
would be under our.
That is in the
Right.
CWMP, so
Yes.
it
Right,
counts. But that's the
It
only one.
counts.
Right, it's the only one, yeah.
Could we get a clarification of how we could put figures for Walkway Bay in here also somehow? I mean, you say Walkway Bay is being paid for by Mashpee at this point.
Well, we paid
But-
for our half of the MEP for that, but we just haven't
Yeah.
But
received
we
it.
don't have the report yet.
But we don't have the report yet. But it should be included in the data that we get.
Absolutely.
Whatever, and are we,
Oh,
you know, is it being included in the data that they're doing?
Well, we started off with 1/2 of McCoy. What he just sent me maybe a couple of weeks ago and was published, I haven't even looked at it, I just published it, is combined McCoy Bay revised report.
He does have it.
It's up there.
Okay.
I would say that McCoy Bay is so far down, and I know it's important, that getting back to what Sia was saying, we got a limited budget, we have limited time, that in my mind, Little Pond and Bourne's Pond, and possibly West Falmouth Harbor, should be the 3 priority ponds that we consider exploring baseline monitoring.
say that 3 again, Jerry?
Little Pond, Bonds Pond on the assumption that,
Yep.
in West Falmouth Harbor, or whether it's as detailed as he's saying. Then we will, as we bite that off, we will decide on the other ponds, because we don't have anything planned for the other ponds for a while.
Except for Green Pond.
What do we have?
Well, Green Pond was a temporary viability.
Yeah, that's,
I'm not sure.
no.
Is-
The only argument I would make about Walkway Bay is that there has been a private oyster experiment going on there with 6 million oysters. And there's also been a lot of work being done in Great River, in Mashpee, about oysters for the last couple of years. It would be nice to
Post
have,
MEP, you're right. Oh, no, even during the,
Right, but are we planning a demonstration project there?
maybe not, but we should
That's-
certainly know what's happening there, it seems to me.
But for the purposes of this baseline monitoring contract,
Right.
all we're looking to do is establish a baseline for the purposes of the demonstration projects and scientifically validating the efficacy of them. So if we're not thinking that we're going to do a demonstration project in McCoy Bay, this baseline monitoring, there's two kinds of baseline monitoring. One is for TMDL compliance, and that's what Pond Watchers and the other groups are doing in McCoy and Mashpee, and that's not this baseline monitoring. I mean, this baseline monitoring is specific to our demonstration projects. And so that's why I'm saying, can we pick the specific estuaries where we envision demonstration projects, and then I can get a budget
Right.
for that
Right.
enhanced baseline monitoring for the demonstration project.
Should Oyster Pond be included?
Are we planning a demonstration project in Oyster Pond?
It would only be a global one, so, I mean, it's not spatially specific like PRBs or oysters.
They're not
So
yet.
I wouldn't see.
I don't
the-
think
the
so.
answer is no.
No,
Okay.
no, the baseline is
As
sufficient.
long as, let me make sure I understood what Sia just said. Everybody agrees that you're gonna have at least annual sampling everywhere. That's the TMDL meetings,
Right.
right? It would be crazy to
Right.
lose that.
That's happening.
Right.
Right.
The current sampling continues.
Right. So
And I guess I'd just like to ask, are
the
we,
specific sampling for the demonstration projects is in most cases extremely specific to what the demonstration project is and where it is.
in the
I
water.
mean, if you have a 1,000-foot PRB, you want to be measuring special things on both sides of it.
Probably not in the pond either.
After it's implemented.
yeah.
And that is those decisions will be made post. What I'm talking about is the baseline monitoring pre.
A lot
guess-
of these things, like the inlet widening and the PRBs, I think the design and permitting processes are sufficiently long. Correct me if I'm wrong, many of you know more about this than I do, that you'd have plenty of time to do the pre-monitoring after you decided on the location before it physically happened.
Did you say 4 years?
I agree.
No.
They recommend 3 years.
3 years.
After the installation,
Right.
and 1 to 2 years before the installation.
Only 1 to 2 years before the
Yes.
installation?
Yes.
Okay.
But that's SMAS. Let's see what
Right,
Yeah.
DEP may have their own version.
And
This
our
was
own
to get us-
consultant.
Yeah.
This was an important process
Yeah.
because it's the details, you know? You talk about baseline monitoring.
Well, no, but what I'm
Right.
trying to get to is if we can get the first 1 year in a dedicated 2 or 3 places, we'll move forward. As
Yeah.
far as you're concerned, the analysis of the Wacoit Bay data, if there's new stuff, should show an improvement of what Atlantic oyster is being done there, because
Yeah.
in theory, we should have seen some type of reduction over the earlier years.
That's correct, and I would like to see whether that has happened
Well,
in
that's the
Walkway Bay.
analysis.
That's the analysis, that's what I'm talking about. I'm
No,
talking
no,
about the
you-
analysis.
Task 2,
What? I'm talking about task 2.
okay.
I want Walkway, I would like to see Walkway Bay and Eel Pond included in
In the
task 2
analysis.
in some way or another, in the analysis, yes,
That's task 2.
yes.
Okay, I thought you were talking monitoring.
I want the monitor, certainly I want the monitoring to continue there, because they are doing something there. But the analysis, if we have 6 years of analysis, or actually we have longer in Walkway Bay than anywhere else, don't we? It started in
I
Walkway
think our
Bay.
premise is we're doing the analysis on everything up to the year 2011, including Walkway Bay.
But it's not listed here.
Well, it should be.
No, and I just want to point something out, that the report on Wacoit Bay is just coming out now. So it is quite likely that it's up through
That it's current.
2011.
That would be
It's
current.
current.
Oh, they-
So
okay,
we don't need to pay for retro because
Right, it's already been done.
it's
Will
taken
they,
some-
will they have
I-
a 1 year of data, or will they have the whole period of data?
Open up.
All right, we need to look at the document.
Right.
But
We-
I
nobody's
can't
seen it. It's
imagine
very-
that they wrote a report now on data that was done in 2006.
Right.
I can't
It's
either.
not
No.
likely.
Let's
Steve.
just make sure.
Yeah.
I'm gonna try this. Brian House came here and said, which seemed like a good piece of news, that they have been continuing to gather samples
Yeah.
in these South Coast estuaries, but they don't do any analysis with them
Right.
unless there's a driving force to do an analysis. I thought we had said, well, we think it would be good to take the data you've been gathering and bring the analysis up to whatever the current day is.
Right.
I think that's where we started this conversation with.
Yeah.
I would like to sort of perhaps work on the outline of a motion here if I can, but to amend a little bit of what you said, Virginia. To the extent that they stop the analysis at any given date and time on any given estuary, and they have data from that date and time to the present time in that estuary, we think that they should take that data and do the analysis so that the baseline is current for all the South Coast estuaries as of now.
Okay,
Is
so
that
that would include Wacoit.
Yeah, and
If-
they- and
if it's not done.
if it's not done, or if they've
Okay.
gone back, I mean, I get lost in Brian Howe's manipulations of his data sometimes. I'm never quite sure which ones he's done or not done.
Right.
I have the table we created a long time ago about which ones are in process or being done or not
Right.
done, and when they're gonna be issued and who's approved them, so. But I think that was the conversation we had with them.
That was.
Boy, you've collected
That was.
samples, but you haven't done anything with analysis and data. And we thought, boy, it'd be good to bring it up to date.
Right.
That's the first step.
That's
I think we want to do that.
And so if he has a point of 2009 or something, or 10, for Wacoit Bay, and doesn't have a full analysis, do the full analysis.
Exactly.
That's what we just said.
Exactly.
Okay,
Exactly.
fair,
No,
fair.
Well, yeah, for everybody.
No,
Yeah, that's
only
given
for the
test
South
to
Coast.
all-
Oh, well, yeah, only for the
All
South
for it.
Coastal, yes, that's
South
right,
Coastal.
yes.
And/or
And
West
West
Falmouth,
Falmouth, yeah,
if we want
okay.
to put that in there.
Okay.
So to the extent that that sounds like a motion,
Yes.
I would like to make that a motion. And I think they just, and I'll withdraw it right away, but I think that's the first step
Okay.
that we've been beating around here. There is existing data that
Right.
needs to be
Okay,
analyzed.
we want that in this contract. Is there any further discussion on that particular? It sounded like a motion. Was it a motion?
I would like to make it a motion.
Okay, is there a second on that?
I'll second.
Second,
Okay,
yeah.
further
If it counts
discussion
as a
on that
motion.
one piece. Task 2, taking the old data from whatever date it began, updating it and testing it, whether they do to it till 2011 or 12.
For the South Coastal Estuaries
For
and
the
West
South
Falmouth.
Coastal Estuaries in West Falmouth. That's the motion for discussion, Ron?
Oh, no, I guess,
And
Very,
giving us a
very,
copy.
very quick
Yeah.
clarification.
I have
Very,
another
very quick
point.
clarification. Is Falmouth Inner Harbor on or off the list of South Coastal Estuaries these days?
It's
It's
off.
off. It's
Oh,
not,
okay.
it's not.
Just
it's
check
not-
it.
It's
Wait.
the South Coast.
Just checking
It's
because,
not
because
us.
with Brian, we have to be
We
very
gotta
clear.
see the report and study it.
Actually, I do have a discussion point.
Right,
Off,
right.
it's off, just confirming,
Off.
confirming.
Move the question.
I have one discussion point. In this document, at the front pages, it's talking about to continue baseline, for example, to continue baseline nitrogen monitoring toward TMDL compliance assessments. So we're monitoring water quality, and how does that factor into TMDL? Because once the TMDL is set, it takes years before you can change it. So if it's a loading factor, how do we comply with loading?
With all due respect, Ron,
Yeah.
I think you're off
Yeah,
the motion on the floor is
No.
to take the data that we've got and bring the analysis up to date.
Okay.
Task 2.
Okay.
So let's just get that off the
Okay.
board.
And
Okay,
present,
okay.
and give us a copy of said data, right?
Okay.
That's in here. Tabulated
It's not
data.
always understood.
Well, we're
Yeah.
not just asking him to do it for himself. We're
Yeah,
we're
right.
paying for this data.
Good quote from.
All right,
want
so
to
everyone's
pay.
on board with that. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay.
I'll get a cost for that for next week.
That is in the deal.
Right.
Anything else that we should clarify is in the deal or out of the deal?
It's in the, task 2 now. Task 2
No,
is
no,
done.
we're done with task 2. Anything else?
If you could give me which estuaries we'd like enhanced baseline monitoring for.
No.
Tonight.
Starting to.
Tonight.
Okay.
Little Pond.
I think we wait. I mean, clearly, we don't need these, we don't need to decide right away. We can wait until we know where the demonstration projects are gonna be in.
Well, what she's saying is we want
She wants to
costs
get pricing.
to be, we want his prices on these,
Well,
on
we know
these.
Little Pond, oysters may go in as early as next year.
Exactly, I think we
Right.
definitely
I
are
think we
doing
want
it
Little
shellfish.
Okay.
And
Yeah.
Vaughn's Pond looks likely, but
Right.
you could
Yeah.
put that off because the inlet widening is gonna be a while, you know.
And we've been told by the terms of our permit to look at a permeable reactor barrier for West Falmouth Harbor.
Correct.
So we
Okay.
want
So I
that.
think
he-
those
So
are
we're
the
just asking for estimates.
Exactly. This
we're
is
asking
all
for estimates.
prices, yeah.
So I move that we request estimates under whatever the task one is for Little Pond, Bourne's Pond, and West Falmouth Harbor.
Second.
For 1 year.
Wait, Barn, wait, Barn,
Well, for one, I want, may I say, we want annual cost
Right.
and a recommendation for pre and post
Monitoring,
timeframes.
the duration.
Okay,
Duration,
on
yeah.
those water bodies only.
On those, yep.
Okay, so that's a motion, I think. Is there a second?
Second.
Further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Aye.
Okay, let's
Aye.
vote.
Good.
What other tasks can we provide guidance on?
Well, it should probably voting up or down, the MVP for Salt Pond.
Well, I think
That's
we want to
coming.
hold that one until we vote up or down on the first one, which
So
would
the-
presumably is going to be next week.
Oh, yeah, okay.
The last piece was, this West Falmouth Harbor, monitoring.
Where's that?
That's
It's
page
task
9.
Number 3.
page
Right.
9.
And that's
It's
the
on
one
your-
I'm watching
Well-
Terry shake his head on.
Jerry just said that that's,
Well, I can
that's
see the
future.
analysis, and, you know, I'd like to talk to Brian and others on the consultant. We're coming up with next 2014, we have to get under the permit. And the permit doesn't lay out anything nearly as extensive of this.
Yeah.
We take one sample, I don't particularly like it, but the permit says we take one sample, report back. Then they may say, we need a little bit more data, or they might say eureka, remit it. So I'd like to hold off on this.
task 3.
All right,
Yeah, and the other point I would make is that there is remaining money in Article 18. If everyone remembers, Article 17 was the CWMP. Article 18 was the repair to the Trunk River, repair to the pumping station in
Shivericks.
in Shivericks Pond, thank you. But there is still funding remaining from that. And when the settlement was made with DEP, there was a small asterisk at the bottom that talked about additional work that might be done using funds that were already available. They were referring to Article 18. So I'm sort of protecting the funding for Article 17. I think that thought does have to be given to West Falmouth monitoring. I agree with Jerry. But I'm not necessarily saying that Article 17 would fund it. Okay.
Okay.
okay, so we're gonna hold on.
Okay.
Well, we-
So maybe the motion is to hold on.
Well, we-
Well, you can tell Brian that we've agreed with task 2 with some edits, and that we're going to revise task 1, and it'll be on the agenda for
For the
next Thursday.
Presuming that it's ready,
Yeah.
but we're counting on. Any chance that DEP could give us any input in the next week? I know it's a big order. No.
And I think, you know, we're gonna get a consultant on board
Get him to
pretty
pick up
soon.
the
Yeah, right, it's vacation
Yeah.
week.
We're gonna have
Okay.
more, gonna have to get
All right,
advice.
so we're done with 1, and it'll come around again in a week in a revised form. Number 2, I'd take a motion to table till the next meeting for, just because we want them to travel together,
That's what we said.
which we've been saying right along. So a motion to table,
Motion to table item 2 till next meeting.
okay, second,
Second?
all in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. Okay, fertilizer bylaw.
Oh, wait, and I just have one more question for, if I could, one more question for Brian. You know, in all the monitoring, the water quality monitoring, one of the targets is the sentinel threshold of nitrogen in the ponds. But I've read that in all the reports, it's there, but it doesn't say what day. Like, when does it have to be reached? Is it year-round, or is it just,
Worst case, probably the summertime. That's
yeah, I would say like August 1st? I mean, because these monitoring is limited to only a few months of the year, you know, so
Yes.
it's,
Brian did comment on
Yeah.
that, So there is a sentinel station, it's usually the middle one in the
Right,
pond.
right.
And the second was, I think he did use the word worst case, that it is the summer when there is the greatest stress, the greatest number of population and so on. So it's meeting it, he didn't give a date, but
Right.
my guess is it's an average of the summer
That's correct. That's what he said.
data.
The average summer
He
only.
basically said that we don't really sample a lot in the winter because that's not a problem time, and we
Right.
sample in the summer because that's the problem time, and that's the sentinel time you're gonna have to reach.
One of our difficulties in West Falmouth is the Sentinel Station is not the one in the center, it's the one at the worst case.
At the worst
part of
case.
part of
Right.
the harbor.
Right.
So that's
Okay.
Steve.
Jerry just said something that gives you, if you think about it, a real insight into how these people think or don't think. I don't mean how you think or don't think. Amy. You said,
I'd like to know.
correct me if I'm wrong, but I think you
Another
said, they
discussion.
said, we give them one number, and then they let us know if they need more numbers.
That's
And I'll bet you they're not willing to tell you the algorithm they use to decide if and what other numbers they're gonna ask for.
I'll clarify. The permit says we go out and sample West Falmouth Harbor in 2014. At the Sentinel Station, if I remember the permit, we choose when. If it's my desire, I'm gonna wanna take a few more samples to hedge my bet, depending which way you're gonna go. Then they're gonna come back and say if we're in compliance or not. If we're not in compliance, it's not like we're violating any law, it's just we're into the middle of adaptive management. 2014 was the time when the entire groundwater should have flushed through West
Right.
Falmouth Harbor. So that's why, when I look at Brian's data, I say, wait, that's a lot of monitoring when we're not even sure if DEP wants half of it.
Good point.
Did that help you?
Yep.
I don't think so.
I still have a low opinion of the way they're doing business.
Let's move on.
Let's go on.
Sia had suggested we take a 5-minute break, and she brought cookies for the purpose, and we have three fairly complicated things to deal with, so why don't we take a 5-minute break?
Good, thank you.
I'll pass the cookies.
Wow. Cookie.
Very thoughtful.
What is complicated on the rest of this agenda?
The people at the table. You and Eric could probably go through that in 2 minutes.
14 will be easy. Sorry for running a little late. No, I had not forgotten.
Yeah, that's what we just did.
You know, getting out of Providence is generally easy. For some reason, huh? No, I'm not, getting out of Providence, I was just generally,
That's table?
no, I left, 5:15, 5:20. And I gotta come a little bit from over by Federal Hill there, there's that little interchange. And we just crept all the way over the bridge, I mean, it was like 15, it was like 20 minutes or what, I don't know what it was. I just, yeah, I guess a little bit of traffic, but no, just in that Providence sort of new bridge thing, it was, and usually it's like a 5-minute, you know, like it goes a little bit slow.
While we were waiting for you.
And I kept waiting to see like the parts and pieces on the highway.
I don't know about the
You know, like that somebody had an accident or whatever.
Chairs that include the meeting from committee members. She wants to talk about it. Okay. Oh, we had this already. Oh, thank you. Great.
I'll show you guys.
You vote on the minutes?
It's more than just,
In a minute. Basically, I'm sure there's going to be this,
Okay.
you'll see something like that on one side. Something like that on the other side. Each side's going to learn more, go to the website.
well,
And also translate it off. It's going to be aggressive. And if you want to fine tune it.
no, I'm not saying, I just said, I thought it'd be, oh, you,
Okay.
Oh, that's what I'm saying.
Is this one? I haven't seen this yet.
Oh, you would? Oh, okay. Okay, so that'd be another.
I have way too much work to do, I guess.
Oh, okay. All right.
Way too much.
Purpose?
Well, that's good.
1, 4.
I don't like
Where's 2 and 3?
Well,
Where's,
I grew up on the street with about 2 boatyards.
and besides, this is not,
It's 4 doors away from 2 boatyards.
that's it.
In Marblehead.
Otherwise, I don't think we can vote on it.
My parents didn't own boats, but early on I learned that I could get some enumeration and
why don't you give me them?
scrape spot and paint the boats.
Unless someone wants them, you know.
I think they're better off getting them implanted the right way.
Most of them don't get somebody to come in and manage the engineer and the contract. That's his state. But it's been it's been very difficult to sort of gauge. Part of it is like trying to get right to agree on it's gonna be done and how it's gonna be done. Like I've been.
Do we call the troubleshooter or do we call peer review?
No, not even peer review, it's like
Quality control?
in fair hand.
I know, you can,
Fair hand.
I think realistically.
Oh,
okay.
Yeah, really, they're pushing it.
Got $7 million grant.
Oh, yeah, they.
Build some digesters. Electricity.
I think,
And they called me and when they were 8 months away and $1 million.
interest in how certain things get interpreted.
And we're now in a year and a year and 8 months.
When you were there after.
Still starting. We're in like week 6 of starting. All the whole.
We'll have to get funding.
Doesn't work. Oh.
It doesn't work as a human pump. Pump. It's what?
It's Brian, whoever it is.
Town is, I've been spending the last month and a half helping the town negotiate a settlement contract.
Oh, that's right, too, you didn't.
A settlement with the engineer.
Stick around.
We're getting that right to agree with
We're
it.
going with the little bit of fuzziness and murkiness.
It's been hard.
He has this
That was bad.
Finesse.
Other than.
Stay away.
It's kind of,
Secretary.
I had never sailed, I had never been on boats, I was on boats. But my time I did, I left Marlboro.
Give them an update of our funding financial statements. That gives them, you know, it keeps us from the hook that we have to make some type of progress.
I did.
I am. For the MEP reports in our harbor and so on, that we've been waiting forever, and we've got drafts of final meeting. And we don't have hard copies.
No, we have 3 hard copies
We have copies of each one.
of each one.
Okay.
So we've been waiting a while. He wants to have a public meeting in town.
We can't go home, so.
Let's resume the meeting, folks.
Great.
Yeah,
Matt's
okay.
getting hungry
Yeah.
and tired.
Irritable.
Irritable. I knew this was gonna happen.
See it, thank you.
Well, I know what he's like, he's a piece of cake.
These were addictive.
All right, everybody get microphoned up again?
Are we gonna do a cappella for a while?
For the sake of the public, I hope not. But, all right, we're all back. Item 3, discussion and vote on draft fertilizer bylaw, town policy. So yeah, that I actually did send you the right copy of, I think. And in number 3 on your collection of printed matter.
Section 1, Section 4, and Section 5, and that's it. Is that right? That's what we have.
Single page, missing
this-
some of the sections?
This would be,
Yes.
this would be this.
Right.
Right, yeah.
Not missing. There was an
Well-
outline of the sections that you would typically put in a bylaw, and then the substance, which is performance standards and exemptions.
Okay.
So, Eric and I we've talked to other communities that have enacted bylaws in Nantucket, Sanibel Island. States have done bylaws. The purpose of this proposed nitrogen bylaw is to walk before we run. What I mean by that is there are certain widely agreed upon performance standards that you don't get a lot of pushback on, and there's a lot of general acceptance for. And those include a blackout period. A blackout period is when fertilizer should not be applied. The time, the dates of that, that period is fairly easy to defend based on soil temperature. And the turf managers from most ilks will agree that that's a reasonable thing. The same with not putting fertilizer on impervious surfaces. Pretty obvious, pretty straightforward, common sense. So A and B are of Section 4, which are the performance standards, are widely accepted common sense approaches to reducing unwanted nitrogen from fertilizer. Same with number 3, no person shall apply before or during a heavy rain event. These are times when it's very clear to everybody that you're putting too much, you're putting fertilizer down and you really don't need to be. The 2, the last 3, D, E, and F, start to become.
F?
No,
I don't know.
CD&E.
In
You didn't get F.
the last
No.
one that I got didn't have an F.
What is an
Why
F?
don't you
What
have an F?
What is an F? What is F?
it's a letter.
It's a letter.
Yeah, but what is
Okay.
it?
So let's deal with D,
So-
you got D and E, let's talk about them.
D and E is the application of nitrogen prohibited within 100 feet of water bodies. That is something that, that I guess Eric had felt, I mean, that was something that you thought was an important criteria.
Yeah, I think when we all took that tour by boat of the estuaries and the ponds in this town, we were all struck by how green the lawns were right up on the water. And how clearly those were the well-off people who had wanted to have very green lawns right up next to the water. So that 100 foot is the one area of town that has been delineated by law and is already heavily regulated. And this would add a piece of regulation to that 100-foot strip, which says you can't fertilize there. But it would do it not through the Conservation Commission, but as a general town bylaw, which everybody thought was a better idea, including the Conservation
And when
Commission.
something comes before the Conservation Commission right now, as a Conservation Commission policy, they require the Falmouth-friendly lawns approach, which is 0 to 1 pound per year. And when we get to conservation regulations, they're also supportive of having no fertilizer in the wetlands buffer as well. And I should say that you guys have one that says resource areas, right?
Yes.
And that's to follow the definitions that the town already uses. So we're gonna just stay consistent with resource areas.
Right.
And the other reason, and E is in the same vein, if you grass and other vegetated debris has a bunch of nitrogen in it, and so you don't wanna be depositing that within 25 feet of resource areas. So before you start with questions, let me just kind of get through a walkthrough of what's going on. And
Can
Okay,
can I
can we
make a
get
point first? The exemptions for golf courses, I can sort of see that except for D. I mean, why should they be putting anything within 100 feet of rivers? And the one that I can think of, our golf course, there are some rivers and
That's a fair
Yeah,
question.
it is.
so I
Yeah.
would like to see
Yeah.
a amendment to that, maybe phrase the golf courses except for D in section 4.
Except for D. There is no F, that's good news. And I just wanted to, I put it on mine
Oh,
because I wanted to just say that one of the things that people had talked about, and is in other bylaws, is minimum application, or maximum application rates. A pound per 1,000 square feet per year. And we thought in an effort to have something that was widely acceptable and wasn't gonna create a lot of argument, really, about should it be 3 pounds, should it be 2 pounds, should it be 4 pounds? There's a lot of differences of opinion, frankly, in the industry, amongst people who want all organic. So we left out purposefully, it is not that we didn't recognize that you can have a standard for a pound per square foot per 1,000 square feet per year. We chose not to go there at this point, and I just wanted to put that out there. As for those are the performance standards, and the exemptions follow sort of what Frank Duffy said, which is you can't regulate agriculture. You don't want to necessarily regulate indoor application. And there is, and this could maybe be conceived of as generous, but the idea that if somebody is trying to establish new turf in the first year, they would be allowed to use more. But we may not, I was sort of looking at number 4 and saying that we may not even need to say that. And number 6, because we're not.
Where's number
4 and
6?
6 really relate.
Number 6 is not on here.
if you have a 6, we don't.
Okay, never mind.
Strike it out.
Yeah, no, I wasn't sure if we were gonna have a discussion that went to the 1 to 3 pounds and whether we were gonna try to load pounds and do all that. So I have in my document, both of them.
Well, if you could deal with the one that we have.
Yeah, I am trying. So golf courses and gardens and greenhouses, those are the exemptions. And if you wanna, I can just make a note that we wanna, except for D, performance standards.
4D.
4D performance.
4D.
Section 4D.
Okay.
Performance standards.
Standards.
Yep.
Does apply to golf courses.
Does apply.
Does apply, yeah.
That's key,
And I
yeah.
have to say that in English
Yeah.
tomorrow.
4D has
I-
a loading
Okay.
rate? No.
Okay. is
No,
there-
no, no.
Okay, we've all run through it. Comments on the draft?
Yeah, I have it.
Let's just start here and keep moving around.
Okay.
Matt?
Yeah, I think we should perhaps have that loading rate. We should come up with one, if not now, then sometime soon.
May I speak to that?
Well, I think the theory was, let's find stuff that will be least argumentative and most widely acceptable for the first bylaw. You can always come back later and add to it, but we didn't want to come in with something that would deter town meeting from wanting to do it. And arguing about that kind of issue we had a sense
The
might do
blackout
that.
period is a really useful thing to do. The loading and the amount of nitrogen has a number of there's conflicting data, honestly.
There are conflicting ideologies is a better way to put it.
Yeah.
Right, and the
Yeah,
data supports
yeah.
conflicting
Yeah.
ideologies.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know whether they do, but
Yeah.
that's beside the
So we can do it if you want, but
Yeah.
let's go around the table here.
Let's see what's.
Ron?
Well, I have one overriding kind of thing about this, and that is that we haven't had really any public discussion in the community about what what this is about at this point, to get feedback and ideas and what to put into it. So it's sort of sorry.
You're talking about public comment.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Yeah.
No, I'm just, basically, this is, one overriding aspect is that I think we need to get some public feedback on this before unless there's been something I'm not aware of. But the thing is that normally with a bylaw, it's good to do that ahead of putting out a warrant to get an idea, because there may be some changes, people maybe have good ideas to how to, besides our collective minds.
That happens with every bylaw. The planning board will look at it, the conservation commission will look at it, the selectmen will look at it, there'll be, different bodies will be making recommendations or for changes if they see that needed.
But is that something, but
So that will happen.
September is when we have to get this before the selectmen. Town meeting is in November, and so part of the process of vetting the warrants, my understanding is that it goes before the selectmen, and the other boards that are applicable are gonna make recommendations.
This is the start of the process.
Yeah, and
not
in
the
any
end.
case, we
Right.
might as well give them the best thing we can come up with.
Yeah, no,
and
right,
let people
okay.
comment on it.
yeah, I was just, I mean, that's, because some things have been pulled, right, from the warrant. I mean, they've just been dropped. Or the selectmen don't support it, or
That's true.
or we get so much feedback, we just say, okay, we gotta go back and revisit it,
Yep.
then we'll do it next time.
Right, and the other
Okay.
thing about that process
Yeah.
is, the Nantucket had spent years and had, expert panels and roundtables and lots and lots of presentations. And honestly, this is taking, almost the best of the best of the Nantucket bylaw. So it's not as if the recommendations here are not informed by a process that is very close to home
Right.
and sought to do exactly this. This is not a shot in the dark. This is really trying to distill
Right, no,
wisdom from others.
Yeah.
Just-
The main reason this is before us is because in the settlement agreement with the state and
Yeah.
the coalition, we said we would provide an article to the fall town meeting on fertilizer reduction. So as of September 7th, that's our duty.
you have to get it in. Okay, okay, then another, just a tonal thing to this. Maybe there's something that could say, instead of, it's quite restrictive in a way. I mean, that's the idea, is to restrict fertilizer use. But we could talk about conserving resources and protecting the environment. So the conserving resources could be a dimension to just the preamble statement, to an extent, because, and then, of course, no person shall apply nitrogen directly before or during a heavy rain event. Well, directly before, and we all live here, and who knows when it's going to rain half the time, but it is a good guiding principle for conserving it, because it just gets washed away, and it's a waste of money and effort to do it in advance.
That's true, how do you know?
Yeah, right, no, right. But, the other, anyone who's sailed around here knows that all the wind forecasts are not that dependable. Another thing is that this vegetative debris is prohibited within 25 feet. That's consistent with of the resource areas, that is consistent with the current bylaws in town, or is 100 feet better? I'm just saying, is the 25, how did you pick 25 feet for
That particular part?
item E, for E?
Because that's what Nantucket had.
But that's what, Hong has that too.
And it's
do?
also organic matter.
Yeah.
It's not.
Yeah, right, yeah.
It's not
fertilizer.
Right.
nitrogen.
Right.
Right.
It's
Less
not a
use.
chemical that's ready to be dissolved.
Right. No, I understand. I just wondered where it came from, because it obviously differs
Yeah,
from
that
fertilizer.
piece needs explanation, I think, if people don't necessarily know that.
Right. And then I think that, right. I think the issue over golf courses too is second Matt's point on this is that. But I mean, if there's a fairway though right along a water edge right now, it's going to be a different environment.
Fairway is less of a problem than a green right there at the water edge.
Yeah.
Golf courses, don't do a good job. They don't, it costs money. I think these are legitimate points.
Yeah.
But I bet you talk to some greens people, they don't put more nitrogen or phosphorus than they absolutely need to. Maybe I'm a little bit naive, but I think golf courses are probably pretty up in most of this stuff.
Okay.
Steve? No?
Yeah. Does horticultural imply commercial? Does the word mean commercial? I mean, I know in 5.1.
Agricultural and horticultural uses.
Yeah.
I believe it does.
Otherwise, it's a loophole. And also, that
Yeah.
whole sentence is...
Horticultural is not turf. I think that's,
Okay. It's a little bit redundant between 5.1, that agriculture, and in purpose does not apply to fertilizer application on commercial farms. And you may think that's nitpicking, but in engineering documents, you avoid redundancy so that at a later time, someone doesn't change it in one place and not the other, and then you have a contradiction that keeps the lawyers busy forever.
I did it twice because there's such a strong feeling that you cannot regulate agriculture,
Okay.
that I wanted to put it right out there in the purpose, that this is not for, for farming, and then reiterate it. I mean, I did that on purpose, I realized.
I
it was
just-
two places.
I
So
don't-
tell
I
me
don't
if you
feel
want me to get rid of it.
I don't care. And then under 4E, does that apply to mulching mowers?
I would say no, because it's.
If it's there already, it's just being mulched.
Mulching mowers, it's distributed,
You're just redistributing it.
That's right.
I can put
Whereas
that
this, the
not apply.
implication here is you have a hunk of grass or other debris and you're putting it in one
And-
place.
And to some extent, 4E is counteracted by 5.5.
Yes. Yes, it is.
Good point.
Yes, it is.
Right.
Well, we could skip both.
You've got to pick which you want.
We could skip both of them. I think what we're.
Well, you got to decide whether you want it,
I think
them to
what-
put it there or not.
when Brian House and his studies are thinking about fertilizer, they're thinking about what you buy in bags and spread around with a spreader. They're not thinking about grass that you've clipped from your yard, are they?
Well, grass and other vegetative debris is essentially the same as yard waste, compost, or other similar material.
Yeah, it is.
So in one place you're saying don't do it, in the other place you say it's exempted.
Yeah.
I guess
So you
the
got to
other
make up
thing
your mind what you want.
If you can do whatever, and I was more thinking about it in the 100 feet, but you're right, that's not as clear.
Okay. When?
As it could be.
Okay, yeah, that was one of the points I wanted to make. Was there a contradiction there we need to work with? Second, I think we need a better definition of what you mean by nitrogen. Nitrogen, I think what you mean is any one of three types of nitrogen fertilizers, which are fertilizers which are formulated to contain a certain proportion of nitrogen, and they could include commercial fertilizers of several types. Yeah.
Section 3 is not in here, so I would
Section-
suggest
yeah.
that when they make up section 3.
That they
be
define very carefully, yes.
Specifically what nitrogen
Yeah,
is,
right.
for the purpose of this bylaw.
Presumably, you're speaking about all the three different major types of fertilizers. One is what do we call it? Artificial fertilizers, artificial nitrogen, synthetic. Another is synthetic and long, synthetic low release. And a third, slow release. A third is so-called organic fertilizers, which are formulated with a certain amount of nitrogen, and then they may or may not be really truly organic, but they're formulated out of organic materials with nitrogen in there of a certain level, and they act like slow-release fertilizers. I think those are the three things we're talking about. Am I right? Mm-hmm. And we're not talking about compost. And you specifically say down here at the bottom, you're not talking about compost.
Right.
Okay. And then the other point I think is more important. Without your F in there, I can see the reasons for excluding F, I can see the reasons for excluding it. I can also see Matt's reasons for wanting to include it. I can, because
like 1 pound per square feet.
as is written today, if you think about it for a minute,
A loading rate.
5.4 is redundant because as it is now, you have no limit whatsoever on how much nitrogen you apply on your lawn. There's no limit in here on how much nitrogen you apply on your lawn. Only places you can't apply it and times you can't apply it. You could apply 6 or 7 pounds per year, according to this, if it for your purpose. So there's no limit. There's no limit on that. You could do it establishing new vegetation. You could do anything like that. Under these regulations, there's no limit at all. Am I reading that correctly? All you're saying
No,
is
but the purpose of 5.4 is that you can put it near the resource area
Yes,
if it's
that-
the first
yeah,
growing season.
right, yeah.
Or you're repairing, or there's substantial damage.
Right, that, it does apply to the near the resource area, but anywhere else, we're not only interested in cutting nitrogen near the resource areas, we're interested in cutting nitrogen in general. After all, wherever it leaches in, it's going to eventually get to the groundwater.
But
So
that's separate than the
Yeah.
reason that 5.4 is there.
Yes, I can see that, okay. So but in part, in any case, 5.4 is not necessary because, at least
No, I don't think you want to object to 5.4.
okay.
If you go along with Eric's feeling that you want to make this passable. In other words, people say, how am I going to create a new lawn if I
Yeah.
put a new lawn because somebody ran a tractor over it or whatever. But you're bringing up a separate valid point
Yeah.
that maybe you want to keep people from putting excessive nitrogen in reasonable places.
Right, and what the question then becomes what is excessive nitrogen, and that is an ideological question, I think. It is one that has to do with whether you happen to be a nitrogen applying company that applies nitrogen as a part of a whole program of turf builder and all sorts of things like that, or whether you're someone like Chip Osborne who believes that no nitrogen is necessary, that it's only the practices are necessary, and even 1 pound of nitrogen may be unnecessary on most Cape lawns. That's an ideological difference, and it's also a difference which is supported, I'm told, by Chip Osborne. It's supported by 2 different groups of people, the groups that he works with on the one hand, and the people who work for agricultural departments at most of the state universities on the other hand.
And it's a financial
Yeah.
choice also, it's more expensive.
He claims it is not more expensive to use those methods in the long run.
More labor intensive.
It's more labor intensive, but far less. Once you get it started, it's probably less intensive. Once you once you convert your lawn, he claims, once you convert your lawn to that method, then you don't have as much expense because you don't have neither as much pesticides use, nor do you have as much nitrogen use, nor do you have as much problem with the lawn once it's established in the way that he's dealing with it. He's talking about a change in the whole way you do the lawns. It is really, it's an ideological and scientific question that you were raising there.
Fair enough.
And so I go both ways. I think it would be nice to go with family-friendly lawns and say you can't put more than a pound of nitrogen on your lawn in a year. Seems reasonable in this climate. But that will raise the hackles of all the people in the industry who want to put up to 4. That's where we're up against.
Yeah.
But we're not limiting the amount that they can put on lawns by doing this.
Not in this bylaw.
Not in this bylaw.
Steve?
First off, thank you for putting this together. This was a
Yeah.
great start.
It's a good start.
I've served on the first committee I served on in town, somebody very famously said that there's a big difference between knowing how to win an election and how to lose an election. And I also think whenever you put together some type of bylaw that will go into the town books, people are going to look at it more closely than the 6 or 7 members of this committee have just looked at it in the short time they have it. And one of the things that makes a law, I think, a bylaw passable is if it passes what I would call the common sense test, and if it also is what I would call enforceable. What you don't want to do is turn neighbor against neighbor. And I think that the issue of this, while we can all philosophically discuss how many pounds of nitrogen is good or bad on the lawn, there is virtually no way to enforce pounds of application. It creates almost a nightmare. A neighbor would say, I saw my neighbor out there rolling his fertilizer, and I know he's putting on more than a pound or whatever. And then it goes down a path, and while I philosophically understand why it's a good thing, I think it will make it more difficult to get it passed.
I think you're right.
I will also
I think
offer
you're correct
that
about
the sentence that was added about this ordinance does not apply to fertilizer application to commercial farms. Could be struck in its entirety because under state law you cannot restrict agricultural development. You do cover it down later on. We have a very minimal amount of commercial farmers, and they all know that the law cannot apply to them. And I believe you cover it down below. The item E, the deposition of grass and other vegetative debris is prohibited within 25 feet of resource areas as defined in Falmouth Wetlands Protection Bylaw. You indicated to us that you started from the Nantucket bylaw. I would ask you to go back and check if Nantucket's wetland protection bylaw currently has a 25-foot prohibition or not. Because you may be actually doubling up here. They may have put that into the Nantucket bylaw because it was not in their wetlands bylaw already. And where it's sort of in our wetlands bylaw already and it's already covered, putting the same condition into two independent bylaws is not good rule writing.
I'd almost say get rid of the,
Well, I just should check. My supposition is probably that Nantucket doesn't have in their wetlands protection bylaw, and we do. And so since we do, then it doesn't have to be there.
Yeah, E would cause the most havoc at town meeting anyway.
why don't we get rid of it?
Well, we have to get a consensus of everybody here.
But whatever, okay.
So those are my
Just
opinions.
two quick comments. I can give up the issue of restricting how much we put on soil. If we also publish with this maybe recommended rates, just as a suggestion.
Yeah.
I would, I appreciate what Steve said about getting things passed. And for that reason, I would keep commercial farms exemption in there, just so.
It's clear.
Very clear.
But it's,
Right.
yeah,
Otherwise, you
Yes.
give people something
That's
to
right.
get up and.
Swallow it, so we
They
read
can't
it.
pay
no,
for
I
it.
said keep it in as 5.1, but not have it as a sentence under purpose.
Okay.
See, I'm saying, having it as a sentence under purpose, Matt, is not really the purpose.
That's fine, as long as we have the exemption.
Yeah, the exemption should be listed under exemptions.
Okay, oh, I see what you're saying, so it's process, but you want it,
Oh,
it's
I
gotta
see.
be in there, you're right, that's right,
Needs to be under 5.1.
right.
Okay, I see.
And I also feel like there's a broad consensus around education and
Yes.
voluntary measures. And this is really one, I'd say, leg of the chair, if you will. It's getting a bylaw because we said we would,
Right.
and there's some sensible
Right.
stuff. But there's absolutely continued, we're actually working on programs as well that will educate and, work maybe at the county level to have some sort of a licensing program
Right,
and
right.
that kind of thing.
So maybe where you miss section 3 and you're gonna define fertilizer, maybe you could put some recommended rate of application.
Just, yeah,
Just,
I'd rather
Well,
see it under section 4 as a performance thing. I really like Matt's idea of the recommendation, because then people see it in the law, and they see it's a recommendation, but it's a separate place. They can look, it's right here in the law that this amount is recommended.
and that would be fine either way. My only other point, there is no, how do you enforce it? Are there any penalties? Is it just?
That's a fair question, I think the answer is no.
I didn't write that section because I thought
Zoning
if that's
officer
something we
enforce
need
it
to talk
based on
about.
complaints.
I just have, just on the same loading question, Jerry made a good point about golf courses, being conservative from his viewpoint, he understands. I'm just wondering, how good is the labeling on these products? Is more is better? Is that what it says on them, or is it actually reasonable amounts? In other words, where are we going to get the standards from? Is it going to be from agriculture? Where do they come from?
I can speak a little bit to that. The labeling of fertilizers is quite specific, but you have to be interpreted. You have to have in other words, you have to know what the label is actually saying, and you can write the instructions for someone who can look at the label. We don't want all through this in Falmouth Friendly Lawns in great detail. I could probably find the materials, and you have to actually sit down with the labels and understand exactly what they're saying, and convert them into the terms that you want them to be in.
No, that's too much
You
work.
thought this was gonna be.
Yeah, no, this is the easy one.
Yeah. But that's,
Okay.
So the question is, if we're gonna define the recommended rates, Matt, is it gonna be 1 pound or 3 pounds or?
Yeah, Nantucket went to the trouble of doing that, and if you ask Brian Howes, he said they've defined something that is more than most people ever put
Yeah.
on in the first place. They basically opened the floodgates.
But if
4
you talk
pounds,
to
yeah.
turf people, they want 3 to 4 pounds. I mean,
that's because they want to plant particular types of grass which are basically inappropriate to have on the Cape. Because and they want bluegrass, which is not, you don't want, you don't want to encourage people to use the bluegrass on the Cape. There's no
Which is
reason.
why maybe having no standard is better than having too high a standard. But it's more complicated, I think, than that, because if you've got Kentucky bluegrass growing, you
Right.
need
This is a recommendation. I mean,
Yeah.
you should get a conservative analysis of what people need on Cape, to put on their lawns on Cape
Yeah.
Cod.
Why don't you
And-
come up with that and put it in as a recommendation? When it's come back next week,
Yeah.
we can look
Okay.
at it.
Well, we don't put anything on our lawns at all.
No, I
And
don't
it's-
either.
It's just if it
and-
survives, we just want it to survive.
That's right.
Well, there's nitrogen in the rain.
He'll
You don't need
just
it.
been very patient. Are you involved in this conversation? Would you
Yeah.
like to be? Okay.
I would like to see a recommendation that the grass clippings stay on the grass and not get hauled off, because that's where the nitrogen is. So by leaving the grass clippings on, you can reduce the amount of nitrogen greatly
Absolutely.
and not actually need it at all.
So that can be a recommendation, or
Yes,
a
it's
preferred
you-
practice, or whatever you want to call it.
So instead
So,
of
mulching
worrying about
mower.
it,
Mulching mowers, yeah.
I-
That's,
it has to become sooner or later a
Yeah.
law,
Well, it can't be the law in this.
this one, but it can be a recommendation.
Sure, recommendation.
So, Eric,
Steve.
Steve.
I'm trying to follow this. So are we suggesting that there's a 7th section here called recommendations?
Yeah,
Is that what we were suggesting?
That's good. It'd be a good idea.
can't make it definitions, because it's not.
No, I think, I'm a little, to me, it seems like that would be the best organizational way to go.
Absolutely.
Okay,
Yeah,
so then I suggest that, if that's what we're suggesting.
yeah.
So, section 4 is standards of performance, section 5 is exemptions, section 6 would be recommendations.
Right.
Sure.
And then section 7, the enforcement.
Even better.
Oh, is there
And-
any
and
such
if-
thing as enforcement here? What are we talking about?
Yes.
I think that you have to put an eco toilet in.
if you're
That's
found
right.
out
Feed
of
your grass.
compliance.
That's on the first offense. On the second offense, you got to put 2 eco toilets.
Right.
You should not only mention mulching mowers then, as a recommendation, but mention that things like 4E specifically don't apply to mulching mowers. I mean, you don't want a law that's causing people to not do something that you actually want them to do.
I thought
I think we're removing.
we got rid of 4E already.
Oh, okay.
Because of this issue that Nantucket had it, because they didn't have it in our wetlands.
Right,
Right,
whereas
right,
it's
right.
already in ours.
Right.
Okay, Hilda.
This is important about the amount of nitrogen, because we're gonna limit when we have eco toilets. You're not allowed in the sensitive areas to put any effluent from your eco toilet on your premises. However, you're allowed to put this stuff on as much as you want, 6 pounds, 7 pounds per 100 square feet. 1,000 square feet, nobody cares. And there's something that doesn't sit well with it. Because the
Yeah.
stuff that you actually
It's a great-
create
excellent point.
yourself is very slow release.
Well, it's actually a very different point, because the volume of nitrogen that comes out of a septic system that would be redeposited or an eco toilet, because it's diverting a septic system, is, maybe not ordered, but it's 75 to 80% of the nitrogen going into the estuaries coming out of septic systems, and under 10 is coming from fertilizer. So it may be philosophically unfair, but in terms of the actual
No,
pounds of
no,
nitrogen.
because
No, it's
once
like
the
science.
residuals from composting toilets should be put in the same category as fertilizer.
Yeah, it's exactly, you have to
Because
see the amount.
It's gotta go through the soil and the root system. And I've talked to Brian Dudley, he said that the state estimates that only about 15% of commercial fertilizer gets into the groundwater, whereas slow release fertilizers, he's betting it's probably under 10%.
Right.
Yeah.
So, the residuals from composting toilets is not the same thing as the stuff that goes into septic
Right,
tanks.
great, nobody can
Not
pick
by
it
a
up.
long shot.
Okay.
So there's not a pound, it's more like compost than it is.
It's more like organic compost. It
Yeah.
is organic compost.
Okay.
You have to do it also by the pounds that are actually in the compost. Each system is different, so you have to look at the organic material in the compost when it's finally finished, be applied, and see how many pounds of nitrogen is in it. Which is not the same as putting it straight in the groundwater where
Yeah,
nothing.
it's
was.
unattenuated
Yeah.
underground.
So
All right, is there any more input for Sia? She'll presumably come back next week if we can table this and bring it back next week in a revised version that takes all these comments into account.
Can we still get it?
So we have to have this to the selectmen on by the 7th,
And our next meeting is
Which
on the
is
6th.
and the 6th.
or at least a placeholder.
Our next meeting is on the 6th.
Okay, where do we have?
Placeholder and actual bylaw.
Well, I
We
think.
can have this to them by the 7th.
That's right. I think we vote the best language we can to be submitted as an article. It then does get discussed by the selectmen. The Conservation Commission is interested in coordinating, so we could actually have a meeting and discuss. Ultimately, if after all of these public discussions, we want to, on town meeting floor, you can make a new amendment as the primary amendment that it rolls in all the additional things that we think are good that we've heard of. You have basically, so it's more than just a placeholder. We've sort of set the parameters and then we've tweaked it.
So
And-
just a procedural question, so I'm
Yeah.
prepared for next Friday.
Right.
How do we submit it?
This
Submit
is
it to the town manager, and I would recommend, as a recommendation.
of the
by
committee
Right.
And the Board of Selectmen,
And-
because they're
yes.
putting it in, right?
and the Board of Selectmen.
Yes.
Right.
And then they'll
The
decide.
quality request of the
Yeah.
Water Quality Management Committee. too.
Sure.
I'll give you the language to see if the town will.
Yeah, because we
Blah,
just,
blah,
I just
blah.
want to have that sort of ready to go.
Right.
Oh, yeah.
Friday
Well,
morning.
Right.
We'll vote for it on Thursday, one way or the
But we
other,
should have
Okay.
everything ready.
and
Yeah,
hand it to them
I'll
on
get you
Friday.
the
And we
formal
don't
language.
need signatures.
No,
No, we don't need
We
signatures
didn't
because we're
need
a
a vote of
town
this committee
committee.
to put it in front of the selectmen.
right,
Okay.
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 So I just need a motion to table this and have Sia
So
bring it
moved.
back next week.
Exactly.
Moved and seconded, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed, okay. We're down to 8 here, report on eco toilet events, status of draft feasibility test participant contracts, a discussion and vote on request for committee to sponsor eco toilet rollout event in September at the Falmouth Public Library. Win.
Okay. There were 2 events in the past several weeks that are worth reporting on. One is I wish Jesse were here this evening so he could report on that. Jesse arranged for us to have a booth at the Knockabout Festival at the fairgrounds. And we had a booth there. Jesse prepared a nice sign for it. I think it could have been, the next time we do it, it will be more visible and more tell us more. But it was a nice thing he did. I was there, and also several other people from here were there. And we got rid of about, I think it was 80 cards. We distributed 80 cards to people. We talked to quite a number of people. You could give a report on what we talked to. You were there, weren't you? No, okay. That's right. It was Janet who was there. I'm sorry, she's not here tonight. It was for what it was. It was a successful event, I think. Most of the people I talked with there were interested in eco toilets, knew something about them, had already. They were young people mostly. They were young people who were, for the most part, interested in this kind of thing, and some of them had taken courses in this, and they had studied it and so forth. So it was a very friendly crowd. One of the people I met was a man who had just retired the week before from DEP and had been engaged in, I can't remember the name. Okay. So I think that's enough on that. We don't need to talk any more about that. The second event was one which Hilda and Earl arranged at the Eco Toilet Center. I would like Hilda and Earl to give a couple of words on that. I thought it was a very successful event. I wanted to thank Hilda and Earl for taking the initiative to do this kind of thing, to have that event, to set up the center, to have it available, and I would like one or both of you to tell me what you're doing there, what's going on, and what that event was all about. Just a very brief summary.
We invited the public to see actual eco-toilets, to see them in our house, which is our house, to talk to vendors who sold them and had experience, people who might want to be involved in this program, needed more information than they can get from other sources at the moment. So we made this information available at the Green Center at Alchemy Farm on that day and advertised it and got a lot of people. And we're going to advertise that it will be open every week on Saturday for 2 hours for people who didn't come to the first one.
And I'd like to thank you for putting that together. It's a major accomplishment, it seems to me, to put that together. And it is an enormous help to the work of this committee to have that available.
It's probably the first one in the nation, if not in the world.
Don't know about Africa and places like that, but going on to the draft feasibility test participant contracts, I'd like Sia to report on what's going on with those at present.
Contracts have been sent several weeks now to council, who has promised review and feedback probably by the second week of September, so that would be 14th. And the idea is that we sent them pretty close drafts, well formatted together, and they were going to review and make editorial changes and substantive changes as they needed and get us those back. It was tough for them because they had conflicting vacation schedules through the month of August. And so they asked if they could go through the second week of September to get us their revisions on that. I spoke to them today and said if we wanted to distribute draft documents and they hadn't given us their feedback by the 13th or the 14th, which is the second week of September, would they be comfortable with that? And Pat Harris sent me an email back saying yes, as long as you clearly mark draft. So a good way to do that is to have grayscale draft, not on the top, but really a grayscale that goes through the entire document.
Yes.
Like draft.
Yes.
Watermark.
Good.
A watermark.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Right.
Yeah.
Great, that's
We would do it-
wonderful
We
then.
would do it as a watermark.
That's wonderful. That means that we don't have to worry about distributing those things.
Right.
And that brings us to the next question.
Can I ask a question about that?
Yes.
Yeah.
At what point in the process of those documents becoming complete do we get to look at them? I recall seeing a very preliminary one, and I had a number of objections to it, many of which were to try to help the Eco Toilet Committee, not shoot it down. And I was told that, well, the lawyers are going to look at this. I have enough self-esteem as a business person to know that lawyers don't always see all the mistakes in the document. And I think this committee, and the problem is that after it's reviewed by the lawyers, if we then have a change and you send it back to the lawyers, then their self-esteem is impacted, as well as taking more time. So I urge you to think about that.
I'm trying to think now in my mind about that process we went through. I thought that you saw the final versions of them that we were going to send to the lawyers, but that may not be the case. If it's not, I'm certainly apologetic about that.
Because there was a lot of work done in August when we didn't have meetings. When I would suggest that the latest draft just be on the agenda for next week so everybody sees it.
Yes.
The lawyers are still reviewing it. and
Right.
So
Good. Great.
obviously,
Wonderful.
if there's something that you think really
Yeah.
needs to be pointed out,
Yeah.
there's still time to send that in.
Good.
too. So just make it as an agenda item for
I,
next week.
I believe everybody got copies of them, but there's been no time to discuss it. That's right.
Okay, we'll put those.
All right,
I'll
good.
send them out tomorrow.
Good.
On a
Yeah.
question on that, should we advise the lawyer to wait until a week?
But don't ever tell them to wait.
No.
Don't tell them to wait,
No.
okay. No, because if they start, if if the town's
Well,
council.
If you, you're going to get it tomorrow. If you see something that you think is really a problem, then I think you should talk to Wynn and Sia,
And Sia,
and
yeah.
Sia can forward that issue
Yes.
and not wait for the committee.
So somebody will email it to me.
Yeah.
Tomorrow morning.
Yeah.
Okay.
So your premise is to go ahead with this event even if these documents are not in final form?
Because they're nearly
That's right.
ready.
Because they're nearly ready.
Yeah.
The reason we chose the 13th is because it's between the 6th and the 20th, which were both dates we were going to have meetings here. And we want to get it done, if we can, in September. The farther along you get in the year, the more people get involved in other things. And we've waited long enough, and
Okay.
we have everything ready. It's just a question of getting it started.
And I think in terms of the contracts, practically speaking, there are going to be requirements that participants have to adhere to. And the only thing that a change from council might do is knock somebody out because they're coming up with a requirement that people are uncomfortable with. It doesn't, I don't think anybody's gonna be making a decision on the 13th that they're gonna do it or
No,
not do
no,
it. I think
no.
it's very much an informational,
No.
it's the committee's first rollout of the program, so it's gonna be answering a lot of questions and,
Yeah.
you know, a few of the details may change, but it's actually probably unlikely that they will anyway.
Yeah, that brings us to the document number 8 in your package, which is Wynn's proposed invitation, I guess, to this event.
And I want to make a clear statement about that, that I wrote this as a placeholder to bring to this meeting this evening if someone can think of a much better way of drafting it so that it's much more sensible and much more reasonable.
I thought your rewrite was very good. When did you send
I
it out,
didn't.
though?
I didn't.
sent it out this afternoon.
I did not pick up a rewrite of it.
Okay. I thought it helped polish it.
Unless this is the rewrite that I'm holding, unless the rewrite, number 8 is the
No,
rewrite.
It is not.
No, it starts with the
Okay.
Falmouth Water Quality Management Committee invites you to attend an
Okay.
informational meeting on
Yeah.
eco-toilet demonstration.
Yeah, okay.
Um,
That's fine. I
so
wanted to
all
have
we
it.
have-
yeah.
All we have to do tonight is vote that we agree to
Yeah.
have the meeting on the 13th.
I thought that's all I wanted
That's all
from
you
you
really
tonight.
need.
Okay.
If you
I-
wanna make that motion.
If more than 2 of us attend, is it a public meeting of this board?
It will be a
Yeah.
public meeting.
Okay.
Right,
And
yeah.
we will announce it as such.
You don't have to slip
Just-
Excuse me?
I just clarified
No,
that
but-
it needs to go to, it needs to go to meeting.
Whoa, does that mean we're posting an agenda? Does that mean we're,
Yes, exactly.
okay, but we don't, we don't necessarily have, everybody doesn't have to come and sit in this fashion and
No,
deliberate?
not at all.
No, but
no.
but I believe if it's quote being put on by us and there's more than 2 of us there,
Right.
I probably should make sure it gets to the meetings
Yep.
thing as posted as a public meeting. I'll just do
Right.
a very
Right.
general agenda, saying the agenda is to discuss this, okay?
Well, I propose to bring, let's see, if it's on a Saturday on the if it's on Thursday on the 13th,
From 7 to 9.
from
So
7
it
to
starts
9,
9.
then it's not too late next week to have an agenda
Don't make it complicated. I'm gonna publish a very simple agenda for you.
now.
I will publish it for you. Because I always send the agenda in to make sure that meetings get publicly posted.
Okay, but how long ahead of time?
I'll send it in, I'll send it in
In a
Friday.
timely way.
I'll do it timely.
He'll get it.
I'll do it timely, just so you're legal. I'll do it so
He'll have
you're,
it in at the time.
I'll do it so you're
Okay.
legal, that's all.
Do you have to have minutes?
Mm,
Does Carol have to come?
No. I
No,
don't
no,
think so.
it's just a public informational
It's an
meeting.
information.
Yeah, it's-
Informational
Thank you,
meeting.
I was trying to think, there is I think, yeah, you're right.
But it is one at which we can all sit and say what we
If
want to.
if we're there and we start discussing anything,
Yes.
we have to be covered.
That's
Okay,
right.
so your motion is to have an official meeting of this group on the 13th at the library
That's right.
to sponsor this
Exactly.
informational session on eco toilets.
I would like to say that we have reserved the library. It is available.
Okay, it's not part of the motion. The motion
Right.
is made and
That's right.
seconded.
I'll second it.
Okay, any further discussion on the motion to do this? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Nay, the ayes have it.
Yeah, a
Good.
little small factual issue. I don't believe the Falmouth Board of Health declares a system to be failed.
Changed
Thank you.
that.
Oh,
Okay.
that is fixing, yeah.
I rewrote that.
Okay,
Redraft, whatever.
yeah, I'm just letting you know.
Yeah, good, yeah.
The inspector
Okay.
determines it's failed.
Okay, we're done with number 8.
Failure. It's not a failure.
Item number 9, Nature Center's request for committee support of Fall Town Meeting article for eco toilet feasibility test participants to be exempted from any future betterment charges. And we have a copy of
Number 9.
that as number 9 in your packet.
And let me frame that, and then I think probably, perhaps Hilda could speak to that. I'd like to frame it, this is, as a matter of fact, being put in as a citizen's petition. They are gathering the signatures now. It is being put in as a citizen's petition. Whatever we decide tonight, whatever we decide to do with it tonight, it will be a citizen's petition. And so I think the question tonight is whether the Water Quality Management Committee wishes to endorse this citizen's petition or wishes to change this so that it would be their own, and Matt can speak to what other things that we need to think about.
We wrote this, I wrote
Yes,
this,
yes.
because we want to get people into this program, okay? And you can see it's limited to 62 people. which is enough for the demonstration project. I don't know if this would pass muster, and I think all we could do is ask, all I think we should do is, I asked the WQMC just to pass this along to town council, asking him for his opinion at this point, but also creating a placeholder at the same time.
If there's a citizens article being submitted, that would automatically go to town council.
That's true. I think it would be, good if this committee endorsed it.
Yeah.
Certainly the concept. I don't know if you can endorse the language, but you can endorse the concept of what we're trying to do. I think that would be good.
Comments from the committee members or Jerry?
Just a purely procedural thing on that. If you're commenting and recommending on a town meeting article warrant, if you're doing it as a committee that's subservient to the Board of Selectmen, to what extent do you get their buy-in beforehand, or do you write a motion such that you're not usurping their authority? You do what Matt says, you either say it's worthy of town meeting's consideration or something like that. It's still a citizen's petition article. You're not saying yea and nay, you're sort of, it's worthy of the citizens' consideration, or town meeting consideration, or something along those lines. I don't know if you check with town manager about endorsing something,
Well,
or town council.
other comments, questions?
Yeah.
Steve?
I'm going to speak up on this. I have some very sort of strong philosophical reasons why I, as a member of this committee, would not support this. I would not vote in favor of the committee's support behind a citizen's petition for a lot of reasons. But more importantly, I understand that we're trying to do everything to induce people or encourage people to sign up for this. We've had multiple conversations about what that means in terms of getting people to sign up. The Board of Health, on which I sit upon, regularly has people come in the transfer of property and various other things. And we have recently taken to informing people who are coming in, who are in the area of Little Pond or the South Estuaries in particular, letting them know that while they are engaged in making a decision to spend $10,000, $15,000, $20,000 to remove and replace septic systems in very small lots, that the town is actively engaged in a program, that program may result in a sewer showing up in their neighborhood or some other thing, and they may be subject to a betterment at some future date. I don't want to say it's buyer beware on this stuff necessarily, but at this point in time, anybody that signs up for the eco-toilet, we don't know what will or won't come in their area. We don't know if they will be in a neighborhood where we decide that permeable reactive barriers will work, and we work out a mechanism by which to distribute the cost of permeable reactive barriers. We don't yet know to what extent eco-toilets and anything else associated with them does or does not eliminate enough nitrogen to meet the limits we need. So, I would suggest, going back to the fairness, if an eco-toilet removes 50% of the nitrogen on the property, at the most you would want to waive is 50% of the betterment, because when the sewer comes by, you would want them to hook up for the rest of it. So I just think this, I understand the intent behind it, but I think the timing and a number of other thoughts that would require a lot more discussion on the part of this board and thought, and so I will oppose it. Really, just because I think, while well-intentioned, I think it's out of place in the overall sort of broad scheme of what we're trying to do.
Steve?
My objection to it is similar to the other thing we were discussing. There are so many details that aren't specified, that could be loopholes in it and so on. I mean, I actually listed 10 of them that for some reason I typed up on July 27th, and then some other discussion didn't occur. And I won't bore you with all those, but it's part of a much larger topic of checkerboarding and things like that I think need to be discussed in greater detail. before somebody, and another basic thing is, has anybody estimated a dollar figure for the present value of what the town is losing indefinitely into the future, or is there a time limit, or there are just too many unknowns?
Ron?
I think that one question would be that what has been, Steve, maybe you know, from the experience in Provincetown, which has already enacted this type of an ordinance, and they do have that possibility. How has that been? It seems to me that we have an example right on the Cape, and that it seems to work. I haven't heard or heard of anything that objects, and this is limited to 62, as Matt mentioned. I'm just wondering what the
I can respond
issue
to that.
is. Yeah.
And part of it was the testimony that we had when we had the sewer guys here. They commented on that, and there were people who had put in new septic systems, and they didn't want to be tied into the sewer system, so they were given this exemption, this checkerboarding deal. Subsequently, years later, they want to tie in, okay, because it's a different situation. So that's been the experience there. So they've, and it's, the provision is available, so the town can accept them back in, if you know, and that's the same language basically as the Provincetown language.
Jerry, go ahead.
I just also want to address a few of the other issues. You know, the 50% reduction you gave as an example.
It's not a real number.
Clearly-
It's not a real number.
Clearly not the case.
But as I understood it, Matt, we're trying to get these homes lined up so we can determine how much nitrogen is or is not present at the end.
Right.
And if there's enough nitrogen present at the end that they need to tie whatever's left over into a reactive barrier or into a sewer or into an on-lot denite system or whatever, are they exempted?
Yeah, because clearly 62 in the entire watershed is not going to,
Watersheds, actually.
watersheds,
Yeah.
it's not going to make that much of a difference in my estimation. And I think that again, my estimation that the nitrogen removed is going to be significantly more than 50%, more in the order of 80%. So, you know, you exempt 62, half of them are going to be in western part of the town, you know, North Falmouth and Hatchville and on and on.
Through the chair.
Sure.
I hear everything you're saying. But my philosophical point was this. There's a lot of conversation, a lot of discussion by this board, worked our way up to $5,000 numbers, a lot of other information. I think that's where we as a board got to. We have not come back and tackled the whole bigger picture issue of betterments, cost of systems, paying things off, and to bring this in at this moment in time and ask this board, or ask me as a member of this board, to stand in support of it. I can't, because I think there's a much bigger and longer discussion that needs to be had before we start picking off little bits and pieces of that whole who pays or doesn't pay to the system, or who does or doesn't tie to the system, or participate in a PRB, or shellfish and whatever. We've not got to that yet. And so you've accelerated
Chairman?
one little piece on it.
Okay, Matt, then Steve.
Clearly, this is the same reason Provincetown adopted it. People don't want to go to this expense and trouble and then find out 2 or 3 years later they've got to connect to a sewer. It's difficult for them to get over that. So that's why Provincetown adopted this checkerboarding. We're doing it for 62 families. It's very limited. You know, I think it's going to fly on town meeting floor. I really do. So it would be nice to have some support from this board for this sort of
Steve, then
effort.
Jerry, then.
Okay.
Go ahead.
Just one example of a loophole. Suppose that later on it's decided that a substantial fraction won't be paid by betterments, will be paid by townwide taxes. Will those people feel cheated?
No.
It's not, taxes are not part of this. And I think, if with your permission,
Sure.
taxes will probably never be more than 50% of the cost. You know, it could be a little bit more, but there's always going to be a percentage that's going to burden the homeowner. So I don't think you're ever going to see a point where 100% or the cost of sewering is paid 100% in the tax burden.
Taxes are not betterments.
Okay, Jared, you were gonna,
Yeah, taxes are not betterments, you know, so, and you're right. On the Provincetown thing, I talked to, she's a dentist, Dr. Andrews, I think she was the chairman. She was pushing for the checkerboarding because you're right, they weren't gonna get it passed because a number of people wanted to opt out. And as you correctly said, after a number of years, when the houses turned over, people were screaming to get back into the sewer. So they changed it, and then they made, and I don't know what the latest language is, they made it far more difficult in the future to opt out. Well, one of the questions might be if someone, the property, let's say the property opts out, if it comes back in, is there some amount of money that the new property owner may have to now pay? And I don't think there is, because we don't have impact fees. It's just like if someone new wants to come in and do Silver Beach now. Someone else has paid the entire project. They may get in. Some people may think they're getting a free ride, but it's just the way it worked out. So I know, I think you're right, but I think the other side of it is it was not very well liked by a large portion of the people in Provincetown, and they wanted back into the sewer.
When's true?
I'm sorry that George Hoyfelder is not here this evening. I have had 2 discussions with him about this, and he brings something which I think puts it in a somewhat more positive light than we've been doing. He says that the people who are going into the eco-toilet project are going out on a limb, in a sense. They're spending a lot of money now to do something which is new, innovative. They're putting themselves on the line, in a sense. And we're giving them $5,000. Some of them it's going to cost a good deal more than that, especially in some of those people we would like very much to have in the program. So he thinks it would be, he's very in favor of this. He says he wants to see us do it. He thinks the town will, as a matter of fact, be willing to go along with it. And he thinks also that, as other people have said, 62 is not going to place in any particular watershed much of a burden on the people. So he looks at it more positively as these people are going out on a limb, let's give them some chance to do it. But he also says, and I think this takes care of that, he says that this particular one as it's written takes care of it. If at some future time they sell the house and the new owner wants to go on the sewer line, if there's a sewer at that time, they have to pay the betterment. You can't, in other words, to be fair, you can't get away from that.
Yes, you can, Mr. Chairman. The way
Go.
you want to do it, I
Go.
don't know.
Well,
He didn't know what you were gonna say, so why don't you say it? What do you?
The betterment intention is to recoup the capital cost of the project, they're not burden on the taxpayer, or on the general tax rate. Together, the town's recouped. Any further betterment for that project is a tax which is not allowed. And I had just had this discussion on impact fees. Impact fees is something for new development that doesn't have an existing house. It's a whole different thing, and was debated maybe when you were sewer commissioner. The benefit of impact fees on vacant lots and future development. So I think, unless there's some way of overriding it, the answer is these people will be allowed to tie in at the future with no betterment cost, unless you put something in here that says they would be required. And I don't know if that would even be legal.
I think that's covered in this. And clearly, again, this is Providence. This was Provincetown's law. And if you look at the last sentence, the board or officer having charge of sewers shall adopt regulations within 120 days after adoption of this act, establishing publication notification procedures And the previous sentence, free to betterment fees of property complies with the Department of Environmental Protection at the discretion of the Board of Selectmen after public hearing. My understanding is that the officer in charge or the board in charge will be able to establish, if they accepted somebody back in, they would be able to establish the rules and probably the betterment fees for that as well.
I suggest you go to the Department of Revenue because they make rulings on this. Yeah, you may be right.
Well,
that
how did Provincetown accept people in? You mean they're
I
getting in for
don't
nothing?
know, I just, and that's the exact language that's in the O'Leary bill that allows the town to adopt section, and I don't, when I get into
Right,
it.
yeah, let's not get into that now. But, Steve?
Are we talking about whether you have to pay retroactively?
Yes.
In other words, it's like a mortgage, and if you've gotten out of, let's say it's has a finite term of 20 or 30 years or something, and if you get out of 18 of the years, and then you change over the property, that property has only paid for 2 years, and now they have the service of a sewer into the future?
No. The debt has been covered by the town. But one that Frank and
No,
Department
but
of Revenue resolved.
Do you see what I'm getting at? In other words, person A pays, that property pays in for 20 years,
Right.
their share of the cost of the sewer system. Property B has an eco-toilet, so for 18 years they pay nothing. Then for 2 years they pay the annual rate, and then at the end of that 20 years, the two properties are equal? That doesn't seem fair.
I don't think so, because that's taxation above and beyond what the community already received revenues from. That project's been paid for.
Engineer, Steve?
The way this is written, it's for 62 homeowners or 62 property owners.
Right.
I discovered that my neighbor put one of these in, and it's just, I really think it's a good thing. I'm the 63rd person to put an eco-toilet into my property. I don't get a $5,000 grant, right? And the town comes along and puts a sewer in front of my house and charges me a $20,000 betterment. Where's the equality between me and my neighbor?
Mr. Chairman?
Matt?
Clearly, this was just the first step. If, in my design, if at some point we find out that eco-toilets are just super and everybody wants one, then we could wipe out with an amendment, take out the restriction to 62 and just say anybody who wants them can put them in. And they will not have to pay the betterments if a sewer runs by their home.
So half of the people in the street decides a good thing, they put in eco-toilets, and half the people don't. And we need to still put something in to take care of the nitrogen that's there, a permeable reactive barrier.
No, you're
And so that will be paid
jumping-
for
you're
by the
jumping
people.
way
Well,
beyond-
you just talked about you want to change the number for all the other people. I put the case out there, I'm number 63, and it feels unfair to me. You're suggesting that at some point when the 63rd to 200th home gets in, this could be changed to give them the same deal. And I suggest that you're going down the path that I think this whole board needs to, over a series of a couple of meetings, really organize themselves as to how we're going to finance, fund, charge. What's the real framework for paying for some of these things going forward? If the ultimate proposal is anybody that puts in an eco-toilet does not have to pay a betterment, then that's fair to everybody that puts in an eco-toilet, I suppose. And then everybody that doesn't put an eco-toilet in will then bear the cost through their betterments of not choosing an eco-toilet and choosing a permeable reactive barrier or sewer. But segmenting 62 of the dwellings out of the whole group at this moment in time in the process, I have a hard time
Okay.
philosophically with it.
Mr. Chairman, and I apologize for going back and forth, but
Fine.
clearly we are getting something very valuable from the demonstration project.
Hence, we put
We are gonna have-
$5,000.
We are going to have trouble getting enough people to get into this demonstration project. That is the purpose of this, and they're going to be spread out through all of Falmouth. So the damage would be nil if the eco-toilets turn out to be only 50% effective at removing nitrogen. Secondly, if if at some point we do determine that they are effective and we do want them, and people are willing to pay for them on their own, then the town saves money, okay? And yeah, and we will have to weigh out what's more cost effective, sewers or eco toilets. We may decide that everybody has to do either an eco toilet or a denitrifying septic system in certain areas. We haven't gotten that far. And I would submit that there's no way to come up with that in 2 or 3 meetings at this point, because we don't know what's most effective at this point.
Just one thing, if just look at the number of 62, it's like 0.25% of all the homes in town.
Yeah.
So it's, you know, it's going to be, you know, it's going to be all over the place. I mean, what, you know, even areas that probably there aren't even, sewers aren't planned for 100 years or whatever it's going to be. So the thing is that I don't see the issue of, you know, looking at it as sort of like one street, every other house or whatever it's going to be. But it seems to me it's such a small fraction of what we're talking about, and many of them may be outside the area.
Is there a budgetary issue? Article 17 authorized $650,000 as a reasonable risk for a demonstration project for the particular technology that a lot of people think may not be publicly accepted. A reduction in a tax or a fee is the same as an expenditure. So we're getting around that $650,000 if you authorize this by giving people these credits or reductions, whatever you want to call it. It's the same as spending that much more money on this demonstration project.
The present value of that money is what you're talking about, and how large is that present value?
Well, the
That's-
other more important thing, how do you put a value on the information we get from this demonstration project? How valuable is that to us as a town right now?
It may be the town decided that $650,000 was a reasonable price to pay for the answer to that question.
That is not how valuable the information will be to the town if we save literally millions of dollars.
Then the town should have voted more.
I don't follow that logic
Yeah,
at
we're getting a
all.
little off
All right.
the track here. They voted what they voted, and
Yeah.
that's what we got to work with here.
May I answer that question specifically? If there are ultimately 2 or 3 of those 62 turn out to be in places that are sewered within the next 10 years, then those are the only ones that you would value within the next 10 years. If 3 or 4 more turned out to be within areas which were sewered within the next 30 years, that would, you'd have to,
Fair
in other words, you have
Good point.
to give a real value to that.
Yes, good point.
There's
Ron.
there's just one other point too, is that we don't know what the betterment's going to look like yet. The last time we went around in a betterment, it was 70%. So even these folks will be paying 30%, is that, you know, in terms of the tax portion. So it isn't just, you know, it's still going to be whatever comes up. If it's PRB, sewers, whatever it may be, it's still going to be 30%. We'll all be paying 30% regardless if we're on the sewer or not.
I've been listening very carefully, and I have a lot of thoughts, and they're going to come from several different angles. I can tell that it's extremely important to the eco-toilet subcommittee that they believe that this is an important tool that they need. And I just want you to think for a moment that you may be overemphasizing its value. If you have a betterment, which I'm just going to say hypothetically is $20,000, that's paid, can be paid over 20 years. So the homeowner only has to come up, not only, but the homeowner has to come up with $1,000 a year to pay for the betterment. If this were a viable method, the homeowner would be getting $5,000, but he then has to come up with the remaining dollars, whatever they may be, for installing the eco-toilets. I heard Wynn say at the last meeting that the estimate for his house was $20,000. And I have from somebody else who had a plumber come and evaluate his house, and it also was around $20,000. So I'm just saying that there is a presumption being made here that this is really a valuable tool and an incentive, when in fact I'm not sure it's as valuable. I personally have a problem approving an article for town meeting that I'm not sure is legal and workable, and so that's partly the indefiniteness of our current situation and some of the provisions here. In the case of Provincetown, they knew exactly what they were dealing with. They knew they were going to have a sewer in a certain area. They knew what the costs were. We're not in that situation at this point. My feeling is that this is premature, and that if there comes a point where it is clear or clearer what the town is actually going to do in terms of permeable reactive barriers and in terms of inlet widening, so that we have a better sense of how we might be apportioning the costs, then it might make sense if it's legal to do. I just, as a town meeting member, can't support something if I think it's not really legal to do, and you have not had legal review on this yet.
That's my motion.
Which I think, okay, so just, you don't need a motion for that, just submit it and have it for legal review, just like the contracts for the eco-toilets. So I would encourage you, as a member of this committee, not to pursue this at this time for the various reasons I've given. I cannot take any judgment on what citizens do. I mean, they have a right of petition. I'm looking at the big picture of what our committee is supposed to be working on and how we're supposed to be carrying it forward. I very much want to see the eco-toilet demonstration process go forward, but at the same time, that doesn't mean that, you know, everything goes. So I have spent a lot of time thinking about this, and if I were to encourage you to do an immediate mini step, it would be to submit this to town council and have him review it for its legal abilities, its legal status.
Hilda.
I would warn this committee to publicly start stating the amount of money it will cost to install eco-toilets. Because it gives that, once you start putting numbers out, that starts rolling as the truth. And 2 people have here said the $20,000 without any second cost analysis, there was only one person coming to that house to check on this system. There's no comparison with other systems that could be installed, other combinations. To throw out numbers, I would highly recommend you not doing at this stage before we have done any demonstration at all. So that really bothered me a lot.
Okay.
Because it's scaring people. And we're not into the scaring technique, we want to encourage people.
Mm-hmm.
And the broader picture of this whole demonstration of the eco-toilet is so much broader than ever being brought up here. It's not just the cost only, but the implication of eco-toilets is to recover nutrients and not get them to spread all over the world where they shouldn't be. To also encourage a lot of new jobs in the area. Those costs, the whole broader picture of the economic analysis has never been done. And if we only do similar, like so-called parallel paths of eco-toilets, what it costs now and what it costs to install a sewer pipe, is a completely false economic picture. And again, I don't hear the broader picture of what eco-toilets are supposed to do. they have a much broader environmental improvement for our town than anything else we can do, and it never gets brought up. So I want to make sure that this part of the whole equation gets mentioned in some meeting.
Okay. Matt?
Virginia, could you remind me of your first argument?
That my impression is there is a belief amongst the eco-toilet subcommittee that if this were offered as an incentive, that it would be significant. And so I was saying that actually when you look at the finances, I'm not sure it's that significant if I were the homeowner. And so just to go over it again, whatever the betterment turns out to be for the household, and I just took $20,000 as an example, that's paid over 20 years. So it's a fairly small amount of money each year.
Okay.
Whereas,
let me
okay.
stop you there.
Okay,
20,000 is the estimate you came up for Little Pond, roughly.
right, that's
With a
right.
sewer treatment system is
Right.
really built.
And that includes no
it's-
town contribution here. The 20,000 is to be split.
Okay.
That's right.
But, so that is, I think that is like the cheapest example you'll ever have of installing a sewer, and I think the engineers agreed with that. That's,
Sure.
you probably never get, for the rest of the, area, the 8,000 homes, you're never gonna get $20,000
But
betterment.
that's with them paying the 100%. This
But
is
still,
before you have any
still,
betterment.
But still,
Okay.
the original estimate was 600 million, okay? For doing all of the,
The entire town over 50
no,
years.
it wasn't the entire town,
Yeah.
it was the 8,000
Yes,
homes.
no.
Yeah, it was the 8,000 homes.
It was north and south of 28.
It was north and south of
It was-
28.
Right, it wasn't-
But it wasn't the whole
It
town.
wasn't the whole town. You're
No,
right,
no,
only-
It was the reach of, let me just go back.
Go ahead.
The cost of these things.
Yes,
We've heard a couple of people say $20,000.
yeah.
I think Hilda makes excellent point. You know, you're not including the jobs in that, you're not including the benefit, the environmental benefits. Clearly that needs to be quantified at some point. Secondly, we're finding out every day there's new ways to install these things, and now there's a system where you can use the original plumbing. And the cost will probably be less than, it is going to be much less than $10,000 for almost every home. So
Okay.
it is going to be a significant savings. And as we put more in, we're going to find out just how efficiently they can be put in.
I'd like to,
When?
yeah, I'd like to make one further comment about what the effectiveness of this might be. I think for those people who are not likely to be sewered for a long time, it is still for them a psychological benefit to have it. I keep having people in my area of Waquoit, which is not ever going to be sewered under the rules. They say, am I ever going to have to pay a sewer betterment? I don't want to do that. In other words, they are thinking in terms of what's the town going to do?
But that's misinformation on their part.
Well, it's psychological, it's a psychological thing.
If it's in your area, you can tell them, no, they will never have it.
Yes, you can say that. You can say that.
You can relieve them of that concern.
You can relieve them.
They will be dead, and so will you.
I can relieve them of that concern, but it is nevertheless, for many people in town, it is a psychological thing. I think that it will have more effect than you think it
Right.
will. It's not just the money.
Okay, we're moving in on an hour that we
Yeah.
probably don't want to
Might I
move
get one-
past.
might I get
Steve?
one more? I'm hearing every argument you're making, that the cost to put an eco toilet in should not be discussed because we don't have good numbers, because we don't have enough information.
Right.
And the cost to put sewers in is gonna be too much money, and that if you do an analysis, it's gonna be so much better to have an eco toilet than to build a sewer. I'm hearing your argument. So, is the logical conclusion that we should actually be working on a bylaw or an article that will say that whenever somebody comes to the Board of Health with a failed septic system, that they are mandated to put an eco toilet in because it is so much cheaper and so much better for the environment? I mean, that's what we should be doing. If this is the right thing to do, and we're totally convinced as a board that it's the right thing to do, we should be pushing forward as hard as we can to make whenever somebody has a failed septic system on their property, to not spend money rebuilding the system, but to put an eco toilet in.
And
Because that is where we should be
Mr.
going.
Chairman, it's clearly not the intent.
Alright.
It's limited to 62 systems, you know.
But at the end of the day, we have to get everybody to
want-
move to the eco toilets if we don't build a sewer.
We may end up there. We may end up.
Well, that's where we're going. We should be
may
honest
end
about
up
it. We should be
charging
honest about that if that's what we're
betterments
gonna do.
just to put in eco toilets. Okay?
Different.
You know?
Alright.
So, do what you
Okay,
want to do.
well,
I'm done.
yeah, okay, that's fair. Matt had no dinner, and he worked hard on this, and I don't blame you for being frustrated. Can I say something? The eco toilet thing in this town, we, as you've noticed, and we've all noticed, we are ahead of any other place in Massachusetts, and probably in New England, probably in the world, not the world, but certainly in the United States, in terms of getting something in the ground that actually proves the viability of this thing. And that is largely because this town and this committee have been generous to a fault with every request for assistance, for grant money, for personnel, anything that can move that forward, we've been willing to do. And we're still at it's not ripe yet. I mean, you have yet to have your documents in hand and be able to say to somebody, here they are, here's the cost, will you sign up? We're not even there yet. And you're asking for yet another incentive. Even before you've gotten to first base, you're talking about third base. I think what you have now is an incentive package unequaled anywhere in the country for people who are inclined to want to do this. Throwing this piece in, even if it were legal, even if it were ready, even if it made economic sense, isn't going to make the difference for most of these people that you hope will do this. But you don't know that because we haven't tried it out on anybody yet. You know, we're just not there yet. It's not ripe.
Well, this was actually started, this whole idea started because people came to us saying that this was really important to them. Just
All
the
right, well,
same way.
you may have one or two or even three people who have done that. I don't know how many you have. But the point is you want to change the whole law of the Massachusetts, certainly of Falmouth, regarding how it's going to deal with betterments on behalf of one or two or three people who come to you and say this might be an incentive for them. We don't know that it's needed or necessary to reach the goal you want to get to yet. I don't know that this is legal. You don't know that this is legal. I thought you'd need a home rule petition to do something like this. Provincetown did. This isn't a home rule petition.
This was enabled through the O'Leary legislation.
Understood. They went and got a special home rule petition to do
The
it.
Provincetown legislation was
Right.
2001.
This
much
predated the O'Leary. This was-
Predated.
But they did get a home rule petition, you're right.
That's my
Well,
point.
they had to because there was
had
no
to.
legislation
But now you
enabling
have to get
legislation.
up to section 10.
Mr. Chairman,
I think it-
I
yeah.
withdraw this proposal.
Okay.
Okay?
Would you like us to send your draft to the town council?
I think that's going to happen anyway, through
Okay.
the citizens.
Okay. You'd rather not have us do it?
I don't want to have a vote on this, no.
I think that's a good decision.
Okay.
Could you send it to the Department
But-
of Revenue?
I just
They
have,
rule on better.
I just have one comment, because just one thing. It seems to me there's a bit of an inconsistency here in that we have this fertilizer bylaw. It's going to go through this whole process, and it hasn't been reviewed, and there's going to be feedback from all the different departments in town, and then we'll come back to us, and we may drop it, or we may do something with it, or something like this. It'll have legal review. There may be things there. Then we can come up with this, as Virginia said, a motion on the floor that would basically replace,
Yep.
or an amendment that would replace the actual one. So it seems to me that this is, could go through a similar vetting process, and that it would, work its way through, and then we'd find out, over the next while, going around, being reviewed. The Board of Health can come back and
Well, the fertilizer
make
one is
points,
there
yeah.
because the town, in a legal
So,
settlement,
we were-
said it would happen and tasked us with doing it. That's how that got to that stage. And it's the only one that's in that situation. That's the short answer.
Well, won't it go through that process? The citizens are clearly going to go ahead with
Yeah.
this.
Oh, true.
They're clearly going to the town council. Suppose it even passes, it goes to the Board of Selectmen, presumably they will talk to the various
Yeah.
committees.
To go through the normal vetting process for
All right.
warrant.
And so far, all we've done is take no action, which is appropriate. And if sometime later the conversation changes, we're still here. Okay, the last thing on the agenda, is discussion, number 10, discussion of chair's intention to conclude reports from committee members as standing items on future agendas now that subcommittee's work on RFPs is completed. The RFPs are completed.
Excuse me, we haven't heard anything about the RFP from the eco toilets. What happened to it?
That was reported in, well, was it reported?
Well, the eco-toilet RFP is, we're debating on how much we're gonna go out with, because SIA might be out to do task one. You're right, we didn't report out, because we're not sure what we're gonna go out with, considering the effort
Right.
SIA put in.
That was it.
Ingested.
Ingested.
Some of the tasks in that RFP have been done already. And so putting an RFP out with those tasks in it made no sense. I think that's what they're getting at.
Right.
And so, but he's got a fair question.
Well, the committee voted that we were gonna review in September
Yeah,
the RFP, because in the month of August,
Right.
tasks 1 and 2 pretty much got buttoned up between Jesse and
Yeah.
the stuff that I did and
Right.
getting ready for the incentive program. So the piece that's left needs to be reviewed by the subcommittee, and Jerry and
Right.
me. And so that, it isn't September yet, it's still August as far
It
as
will
I
be
can.
soon.
okay.
It
There we
will
are.
be soon,
Okay.
but we
Okay,
didn't
so-
say we were gonna do it September 1st either, so the idea
you're
was,
right.
you
So
know,
there's
we were
your
in
answer.
August.
It'll come back at either the next meeting or the one after, but in September it'll be back in a revised version that we can move ahead. Is that
Right.
fair? Okay. The business about the subcommittees, the RFPs having been completed, with the exception of that one, which has come out of here and out of the subcommittee and out of the main committee and is being re-brought back, is that basically the subcommittee's tasks are done. And all of us found, in trying to deal with the open meeting law, that the subcommittees that we had set up with, particularly the ones with 2 members, were ridiculously cumbersome. Wynn kept having problems with posting meetings, and then therefore he couldn't have a meeing. He couldn't
My
talk.
fault,
He
but
couldn't
anyway.
talk to Matt about anything substantive because they were the only 2 on the subcommittee for a while. For a whole lot of reasons, they were structurally an impediment to doing things that we needed to have done. We got through it because the RFP process is now over. But I asked Frank Duffy, what can we do about this? And I think in your packet you have a memo from him. When I asked him, because I know we have the aqua toilet people who want to keep working together. The shellfish people may want to keep working together. And I asked him, when we have these subcommittees, which have regular attendees who want to work on these things, how do we continue to gain the benefit of their input but relieve our members of the process burdens of being a designated subcommittee? And his answer was, disband the subcommittees with thanks, and after that there is no reason why these people cannot meet occasionally and informally to compare notes, exchange ideas, or otherwise enjoy each other's company. As long as we don't have a quorum of this committee at those events, everything can keep going as it is. People can meet, people can bring matters before us. We just get relieved of the administrative difficulty and the open meeting law difficulty when you have a 2-member subcommittee of not being able to talk to each other, or if one can't come to a meeting, at the end of the meeting. You've all seen how awkward this has been, and that was my premise here, that we could continue on with an eco toilet task force, or you can call it anything you want, and the same people can do the same things, but we wouldn't be burdened with the administrative limitations that we've all been encountering.
I just have a question. I mean, as this moves ahead, okay, as we've got all these RFPs going on, which is great, okay, we got these projects going, the demonstration's going to go on. How are they going to be supervised? Because if we had every so often we needed to go over 8 different contracts in this meeting, or to give guidance to the team as they come back periodically. I mean, how are we going to handle the supervision of those contracts?
I'm responsible for the supervision of the contracts, but they're gonna come, as a report comes in, it's gonna come to the committee, and you have to move as quickly as you think is needed for the subject matter. If it was in front of a subcommittee, you'd have to have the subcommittee meeting, then you'd have to bring it to the full committee. So this is still streamlined, but it's still gonna be very timely, so.
Intense.
Intense.
Yeah, yeah, that's right.
So, I mean, that doesn't, the subcommittee doesn't help you there. It stretches it out.
When,
Since we are all meeting in subcommittees as well as the major committee, is it possible that we might want to have more, as needed, more meetings of the regular committee in order to,
Yeah.
that could be,
yeah,
Right,
to get the work done?
great, yeah.
that could be. I hate to say it, but it could be. Steve?
I think this is great, and I think the way you solve the problem is you appoint people to be the point person or the chieftain or whatever title appeals to you. For instance, Wynn becomes the point person for eco-toilets, for
Or-
funneling, or I don't care who, or Matt, and,
Right.
but one person. I mean, it's just a nominal thing for communication, but it's not a subcommittee, so
Very good. That-
there's no legal
That
problem.
was the first part of my representation in item 10 here, to include reports from committee members as standing items on future agendas. So every agenda, any committee member who has been thinking on their own or working with a small group outside comes in and tells us what they've been thinking or
In fact, I mean, when you made me a committee of one for Oyster Pond, I didn't know what was going on then, but you said it was a great gift, and you're absolutely right. Now I know why, yeah.
you didn't have to post a meeting.
Yes.
It's illegal.
Every time you find yourself in town hall talking to yourself,
You weren't talking to yourself, were you?
No,
All right. Well, that didn't require a vote, but if there were any strong objection, I think we would have discussed it, but I didn't hear any. So failing that, a motion to adjourn would be in order.
Okay.
Second?
Second?
All in favor?
you have public comment.
Public comment before we...
Public comment.
Okay. So,
Eric, with all due respect, I want to comment on your last comment. You were talking to me about the eco-toilet project as you were doing me a favor about all the things that you have cooperated to get the eco-toilet project on its way. You're not doing me a favor. This is not my project. I'm not doing this for myself. I already have an eco-toilet. I will never be sewered. None of this is for myself. It is for the town. And I want you to really correct that because I was really hurt. That you talk to me as if you were doing me a favor by giving all these incentives to do me a favor. It's not me. Just want to make sure. I was really pissed.
well, I was recognizing you as,
That's the first time because all the other times, every time you speak really angry to me, as if I'm doing something wrong. Every project I do.
I was recognizing you as the leader of the eco-toilet movement
I'm
in
not the
this
leader,
town.
I'm not even in the eco-toilet meeting, in the committee.
Well, you are the leader of the eco-toilet movement in this town, and you should be proud of it, and we appreciate everything you've done to push this thing forward.
Doesn't seem that way.
Motion to adjourn has been made and seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it.